Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nerdcast. It is Devin, broadcasting as always live from an undisclosed location in the center of Texas on a pretty chill Friday night. How's everybody doing out there? I am doing okay myself. Was on the fence about whether I wanted to stream tonight or not. Decided to. I want to do some reactions to a couple of videos. They came across my feed earlier today. And instead of watching them, then I was like, you know what? I think I'll just save these for later. I'll just watch them. Give me something to react to on stream. I knew I was going to be streaming later anyways because I still want to finish doing my grind on... I want to finish doing my grind on DanikaXIX Ogre. You know, like, I have to get the Damascus gear now. And that's going to involve... running around all over the map and doing fortresses and unlocking shrines and whatnot, so I at least have that on my docket to look forward to. I feel like I'm close. I still feel like I'm close to finishing this one out, but it's going to require a little bit extra more effort than I anticipated, so close but not quite there yet. I'm shaking the camera, hitting the desk. Sorry about that. Let me see. Let me get my desktop stuff up. Still haven't quite yet decided on what I want to stream after this. I created a poll. I created a poll on my Twitter account rather. I haven't checked to see if anyone even selected anything on it yet though. Where's the playlist? Here it is. So, the first thing I wanted to react to, I think, when did I watch it? I think over the weekend. I think I may have watched it on either, I guess it must have been Monday. No, it wasn't Monday. Jesus, I have no idea when I watched this thing. At some point last week, I watched This Place Rules. So if you're not familiar, Andrew Callaghan, he's kind of been a bit of a viral sensation in the alt news media space due to his unorthodox gonzo style interviewing, man on the street type interviews where he would go to like random protest or music festivals or like just random places here and there and just randomly walk up to people and ask them questions and whatnot and get radical responses from just the wildest people. And you know, it was always interesting, and like I said, he went viral several times. He popped off. Used to be, I think it was All Gas No Breaks before it became Channel 5. And then Channel 5, you know, he started to, I guess, be a little less, he started doing it in a little less of a random, scattered, nonsensical manner and started doing it more as like I mean, it was still the same, you know, comedy, the same vibe. And it is reporting with a comedic edge for certain. But I felt like on Channel 5, it started doing a little bit more serious stuff as well. Is that Zebedee? Hey Zebedee, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a great Friday night. So with This Place Rules, it's a documentary that he was able to put together and have distributed on HBO. Was just searching up Andrew and found this stream. Well, awesome. I'm just about to watch it. Well, I was doing my lead into exactly what this is all about. At least this portion of my stream. So, he did the documentary, This Place Rules, which documents his experience covering the January 6th insurrection. Came out on HBO Max not too long ago. I finally had a chance to sit down and watch it, and it actually is really awesome. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. It's definitely worth it. funny moments and serious moments all throughout. And it's actually a really awesome next step in like his development, the development of his voice, his style, you know, and his stature, which is only kind of validated by the fact that now he's doing these interviews with places like NPR. Like a year ago or so, the idea of NPR interviewing Andrew Callaghan would have been somewhat amusing to me. Now it makes perfect sense, but it's still like a total style mishmash, which was on display in the clip I saw on Twitter. Really annoying interviewer asking him a ridiculous question. But rather than and because of that, I actually searched for the entire NPR interview. I was going to watch it then, but I decided, you know what, I'm just going to save this and watch it later because I have a feeling this is going to be interesting viewing. So that's where this came from. Andrew Callaghan interviewed for This Place Rules on NPR. Now the quality of this it doesn't seem like it's the best. It seems like maybe this is like a bootleg of some sort. Not quite sure why or how, but you know, we'll see how it sounds. It's 28 minutes. Don't know if I'll last the entire time, but we'll see what's being said here.
Now hopefully we get you to listen.
I would.
Wait, what? Wait, that seemed like a very hostile intro right off the bat. What did he say?
NPR every day. So that's great to be here.
Well, now hopefully we get you to listen.
I would.
But it is a big deal to go from, you know, getting drunken people to say that they slept with their cousins, to doing a film on one of the most important days in American history. So,
oh, geez. God. All right. Now we already know where she's coming from.
You know.
One of the most important. Honestly, it wasn't that important. January 6th wasn't that important. It was annoying for certain, and it was interesting. It was an interesting day, but it wasn't super important. It wasn't that consequential. And ultimately, nothing is going to come of the things that happened on January 6th. There aren't going to be any radical alterations in our policy making or even in our security. In fact, security has gotten much more lax at the Capitol. You know, they're taking away the metal detectors and shit. So I guess, you know, you could say that that's a change. But other than that, there really isn't going to be anything of any real consequence as a result of January 6th. It was just a really fucked up moment in time. And now everyone has moved on, I guess, except for people on NPR. In Australia, we don't have HBO, but I've been following his stuff for a while. Hopefully releases here soon. She is definitely a corporate liberal. Yeah, I mean, NPR, that's all NPR is. They're corporate neo-libs, which for the uninitiated, that could be a soft entry point into, you know, something a little bit more palatable than, you know, hardline right-wingers, but it's still pretty annoying. I wonder if you can get this This Place Rules if you use a VPN on like Netflix or something. I know usually there's situations like that where something that comes out on one streaming platform that isn't available in another country, they'll release it on another streaming platform in that country. But, you know, I don't know quite how that'll work. I imagine it's got to be available in some manner accessible to people in Australia.
Then that provoked another question, which is, okay, so you're saying that I did this for sheer, you know, pull somebody in, you know, for the clicks, for the eyes. Are you exploiting them?
No, well, I mean, first of all, both of them are major influencers themselves.
Exploiting themselves, yeah.
Not exploiting themselves. I mean, Gum Gang enjoys doing stunts. He lives in Central Florida. That's how he supports his family. He shoots himself in the testicle area with potato guns. So
he's talking about the first two dudes in the movie who are like extreme Florida guys. Like one dude looks like the Joker, like Jared Leto's Joker, and he's all super tatted up and just like an absolute wild maniac. They all look like meth heads. They all look like meth addicts, and they live in destitution from, you know, what I could, you know, observe on a surface level. But it's honestly a strange way to open up the documentary, but it makes sense in the way that it connects towards the end. So that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the two random weirdos that opens the documentary up.
smokes out of a fish, makes music. Joker Gang's a pretty successful tattoo model. They're both friends of mine. They wanted to fight. I just kind of stepped in to document something that's already happening. So I don't really film people who aren't already filming themselves.
Well, and this idea, you know, that is a fight. I guess my next question is, and I do want to get to some of these incredible moments like the QAnon family, but
What is on her wrist?
there's a really
Oh, it's
false
it's her
equivalency.
mask. That's funny.
You know, we constantly see these insurrectionists.
That's funny. That's like
being told
that is so symbolic.
Not just that the election was false, but you know that Democrats rape babies and then eat them. They're pitted constantly against Antifa and Black Lives Matters protesters when we know that Antifa is a stunningly small kind of gathering without a leader movement, and the Black Lives Matters protests by every study were 93% peaceful. And so you're setting up this, and I know that's where the tension was, you know, on the streets, but is that kind of a false equivalent?
It's not what the movie's about. The movie's not the movie's not about far left versus far right at all.
It feels that way.
It's not.
What is it about?
Well, first of all, it's about media echo chambers. How people got radicalized and forced into tight digital echo chambers before the Capitol riot. But there's not much really Antifa featured in here. There's some centrist protesters. There's some anarchists featured, but it's not really about that. And yeah.
Well,
What part made you feel that way?
just that I kept seeing it, you know, Antifa and all the alt-right, you know, colliding into each other when we just know.
Well, oops, I didn't mean to skip ahead.
Actually figure out what's on their mind.
Number.
Yeah.
And you know, 30.
So to her, like to the point that she's trying to make, like there are elements in the documentary where he does like much of the documentary he's following right wingers, but there are parts where he showcases like Antifa protesters, BLM protesters. I guess there were some more centrist protesters at a few points, and just the simple act of showing them does not mean that he's positing it in a versus sort of capacity, because it's important to understand the context of everything else that's happening around these radical social movements. And it would have been disingenuous. Like she's saying that she's kind of positing the idea that it's disingenuous for him to frame this as a left versus right, when it really would have been more disingenuous to just showcase the right wing aspect of it without at least giving some shedding some light on the counter protest, shedding some light on what's happening on the opposite end, not from a both sides kind of perspective, but just to get a more holistic view of, you know, where the country holistically was leading up to a moment in time that, you know, a gathering of people felt like it was necessary to, you know, riot at the Capitol. I mean, I think that's important context to have. It's important context to understand, you know, the racial aspect to it. It's important to understand, you know, just how normalized for a while at least mass protests in the streets were during 2020, during the George Floyd protest, during the anti-lockdown protests, the anti-masking protest, and then how that kind of converged into a more amorphous political protest, or I guess maybe that's not the right word. Maybe a bit more of a vague political protest. Like, I think it was appropriate for him to show those aspects of how society was functioning outside of just the right wing echo chamber. Because there are other echo chambers that he's talking about here. Really, he doesn't go into it that deeply. And if you want to have a criticism of the movie from that perspective, I think that it would have been a little bit more interesting to go into that aspect a little bit more. There was a part in the movie where he talks to this group of black people who are talking about how they were being blamed for burning down a Wendy's in Atlanta after, oh man, I forget the guy's name. There was a dude who was asleep in his car at a Wendy's, and the cops rolled up, and he tried to get away. Like, he woke up with cops in his face, and he tried to, like, it got into a scuffle. Ended up trying to run. They shot him, and there was a protest over it that it resulted in a Wendy's being burned down. They were talking about how they were being blamed for the Wendy's being burned down, when they claimed that it was actually like a white woman that did it. And they didn't want that to happen in their neighborhood. And they're talking about how they don't really care about the political process because it isn't gonna change things for them regardless of who's elected, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, there was something interesting in the kind of nihilistic view of someone who is living a life in that kind of destitution, and how that compares to the nihilism that just radical conspiracy theorists believe in, because the source of it is the same. Like the root is essentially the same. And it's like, how do you go to these two wild different divergences from the same source? And I don't think many people disagree with what they perceive as being the physical manifestation of that source, right? Which, for all intents and purposes, was the Capitol that they rioted on. And I've gotten into arguments with people about January 6th, in so much as saying, from my personal opinion, like, I don't really care that they rioted on the Capitol. I don't like what they rioted for. I thought that what they were, the idea that they were rioting for a stolen election and all this weird QAnon nonsense, I thought that was stupid as hell. Like, if you're gonna storm the Capitol, make sure you do it for the right reasons, was my basic, takeaway on that. But, I guess that's a debate for another time. It's show and tell. He isn't fabricating situations, etc. That too. It is also like, from a showman, from a magician point of view, from a sleight of hand kind of point of view, it's also a filmmaking trick where it's like, okay, obviously I'm coming at this with an angle that paints this contingent of people in a bad light, but I'm gonna show the other side too. I've got to at least I've got to do a little bit of rope and dope by showing the anarchist and the wacky blue-haired liberals and the centrists saying cringy stuff. I'll show a little bit of that, the interview with the Biden woman and all the weird stuff she was saying. I gotta show some of that, in order to, like, lure people in, disarm them a little bit, and then hit them with the real meat, the real point of the documentary. Like, there's some of that going on there too, to be honest with it.
I think that's what this movie's mostly about, is following the right wing. I think following the fringe left would be a separate thing. But the point is that most conservatives, especially during that time, believed the election was stolen. Whereas Antifa, or the radical left, if you want to call it, is a very small portion of what you would consider liberal. But the problem is...
You should say that.
Yeah, what I'm kind of framing is that right-wing media... they used Antifa as the ultimate straw man. Like, Tucker Carlson referred to Antifa as paramilitary groups of Joe Biden voters. Whereas MSNBC, I'm not even going to name anybody, but I'm just going to say centrist liberal media wants to make it seem like they don't exist and like all the protests were peaceful. But my question is, what's the problem with non-peaceful protests? Why the constant emphasis on the protests were mostly peaceful? Why not talk to the people involved in the non-peaceful protests and actually figure out what's on their mind, as opposed to try to categorize everything as completely peaceful to prove a political point? Because the anger and the tension was there. So no, I don't think the movie is trying to frame Antifa versus the Proud Boys at all. I think it's more of it's following I think my movie follows a conglomerate of InfoWars subscribers, Oath Keepers, 3%ers, Proud Boys, and general QAnon lore followers, and it shows them mobilizing in public, and the people that show up to confront them in public are anti-fascist protesters. So I don't think the movie draws any kind of equivalency between far left and far right, but it does show the circus that unfolds in public political clashes, which generally follows the news beat.
And how about what you just said about the media? And I don't want to spend too much time on this, and I am not carrying Don Lemon's water.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, she mentioned him by name.
Both, you call it the left, I call it mainstream media, in deference to my progressive...
I call it liberal media.
Yeah, I don't.
Not
in
leftist
deference
media.
to like Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! And people who really are progressive media. Mainstream media And then there's
Well, at least she recognizes that there's a, I mean, there's a value there in her recognizing that like Democracy Now! Is something different than what she calls mainstream media. Because I think that Andrew Callaghan and this woman are saying the same thing. She recognizes that the word liberal has been tarnished. He recognizes that it's been tarnished and is using it in that mechanism, but they both just basically mean corporatists. They're both talking about corporatists. And when she calls out Amy Goodman and Democracy Now!, she's basically saying these are the guys who aren't corporatists. It's kind of a funny little tell there. I don't know if that was her intention. I kind of feel like she kind of stumbled into that, but I'll at least give her some kudos for calling out Democracy Now! In that capacity. Democracy Now! Is very good. Donate to them if you can.
And
so you don't consider Fox mainstream media?
Not when you got Tucker Carlson saying that.
It's mainstream media.
Well,
it is mainstream media. Like Tucker Carlson is the most watched newsman in all of the country. You don't get much more mainstream than that. I don't know how you can say that it's not. Like just because you don't like what they're saying doesn't mean it's not mainstream.
Considered so by people at more media.
Fox is definitely mainstream media.
Yeah, but they lie. How's that mainstream?
Oh my goodness! What? What? What?
Mainstream media.
Yeah, but they lie. How's that mainstream?
Has this person ever like walked around and interacted with people in like the real world before? How is that a question that somebody that has like a broadcast news show, how is that a question that they ask with a straight face? Like that is the straightest face I've ever seen. And she just said, but they lie. How's that mainstream? I don't think there's anything more mainstream in America right now than fucking lying to a motherfucker about anything. About anything. Like lying is the most mainstream thing you can do. And especially lying to make a profit, you know? Like lying to make a profit is the backbone of our economy. Like, and that's what Fox News has been all about. From moment one. I know, Suki. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, that's crazy that she would actually say that with a straight face. I think her audience even kind of was taken aback by that a bit. What's up? I'm not doing anything up here. I'm not doing anything. I just gave you a treat. I'll give you one a little bit later. She thinks liberal media doesn't spin things. They haven't shut up about Trump and January 6th. How about talk about policies that will help us, not all this culture war shit. Yeah, January 6th is definitely the liberal version of like some culture war shenanigans that they can harp on. It's the liberal version of, I guess, what, trans athletes or whatever they were talking about in the right. I tend to ignore a lot of their shit because, you know, paying attention to it so strictly will only piss me off. So part of the problem I have with left alternative media on YouTube and shit, so much of those dudes spend so much time just reacting to, you know, Fox News or Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder or God knows who else. And it's like, okay. And just as a quick aside, like whenever I hear left media talkers talk about how, you know, they're being suppressed on YouTube and they're not getting anywhere near the number of views or follows or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, that's true. That is true to a degree. But you don't help yourself when all of your videos are about, you know, reacting to Ben Shapiro or reacting to Tucker Carlson or reacting to Steven Crowder or reacting to this person, reacting to that person. And so then what you end up with is you have all of those dudes who have millions of marketing dollars behind them that are juicing them up in the algorithms artificially. And then on the other side, you have all of your guys who are also juicing those dudes up in the algorithm because all your titles of all your videos and all your thumbnails feature those guys just as much as their videos feature them. So it's like, yeah, you're kind of doing their work for them. And maybe you're getting, you know, some clicks and subs and stuff, you know, by people that, want to listen to your message. But for people that have no idea who the fuck you are and barely have an idea who the fuck those other guys are, all you're doing is just, doubling down on their own ad spin. So yeah, it's a bummer that so much left media is just, now I don't want to say it's not really regurgitating their message, but it's definitely doubling up on their visibility. See, look, like her own audience laughed at her for that question.
But they lie. How's that mainstream? But if I lie on NPR, knowingly lie on NPR, I detonate.
It's not about truth versus lies. It's about punditry versus reporting. So if you turn on any mainstream media news, first of all, mainstream media is cable news. So that includes Fox and includes the other ones you said. And if you turn it on, it's pretty much 24 hours a day, not reporters, but pundits yelling at each other and talking heads. They're basically engineered to piss off the viewer, and they organize that sort of verbal sparring all the time.
Do you know, though, that, first of all, I apologize because I said they lie, and, I have a lot of respect for some Fox reporters. I'm talking about the night.
That's not the takeaway from what you just said.
The evening news. But there are some, I know you sigh, I hear you.
Andrew is in pain from this interview. He is in pain from this interview. Look at him. Watch.
But there are some, I know you sigh, I hear you. There are some of us in what I'd call mainstream media who actually think that, as opposed to, what you just said, setting up this divide, that mainstream media actually waited way too long to report on the Alex Jones of the world and Mark Levin's. The people behind.
She said Mark Levin, not Mark of Events, just
right
to correct the subtitles.
I just don't see the equivalency.
I'm not drawing an equivalency. I'm saying the mainstream media echo chamber stokes culture wars and fears and division to sell ads to their sponsors because they're corporate backed. It's just how it works.
What?
I'm sure you can turn on TV right now and you can see they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But what's more valid is, obviously I have opinions about that, but
Yeah, well, they have to pay the bills. 1-800-909-9287. What did you want to get from Alex Jones?
Interviews about his plans to storm the Capitol. Interviews about what he meant by 1776, meaning Americans had to defend democracy by any means necessary. An explanation of how his business model worked and what he thought about America at the time before the Capitol riot.
Yeah. The drinking with him while he lifted weights. I'm serious. I mean, this is.
So and this is the clip that I saw on Twitter that made me go, man, I need to watch this to see what the fuck was going on here. The clip that she's talking about, there was a part in the movie where he's talking to Alex Jones, and then at some point they end up shirtless in his weight room and they're bench pressing, and as they're doing reps on the bench, whoever is spotting is like pouring a bottle of whiskey or whatever down the other person's mouth. Pretty silly stuff. I mean, it's all gas, no brakes, to a T. The fact that, he's doing it with Alex Jones is like, okay, it's a gag, it's a bit, and even Alex Jones admits, both in the documentary and before he was forced to admit it in numerous court cases, but he's admitted in interviews too, like he perceives his persona, his InfoWars persona, as a character that he plays. Like, that's kind of how he views himself. And it seemed to me like that moment was more of that. It was more of the performative side of Alex Jones. And maybe I got the sense that he did it not just because it was funny, and he wanted that type of comedy in the documentary, but also because it is a little disarming. It's a little disarming. And Alex Jones, kind of surprised he even agreed to talk to Andrew Callaghan, to be perfectly honest. But, he also knows that, he can be held very responsible for a lot of the stoking up of the insurrectionist that he was doing leading up to the storming of the Capitol. And I think he knows that it is in his best interest to downplay his role in all of that, to roll back a lot of the incendiary things that he had said, to try to pass it off as, hey, I'm just a performer, and that was just a part of my performance. That was just the things that Alex Jones, the character that has the role on InfoWars, says, and not me. I am Alexander Jonesington, and this is just the role of a lifetime that I'm thrilled and honored to portray. But the guy that I'm playing, he's the one that did all that other weird shit. I get the sense that part of that scene was playing up the performance elements, and I also think that it was just trying to disarm Alex Jones so that he can, in a moment of comfort, slip up and say something a little bit more, damning. That's my vibe from it. But even if that wasn't the vibe, it's really not anything to like get super bent out of shape about, in my opinion.
He lifted weights.
Alex Jones is a deplorable scumbag. That's not a defense of Alex Jones. Hated that dude ever since I moved to Austin because he broadcast outside of Round Rock, I believe. And it's never been good. It's never been good with any sort of interactions with a lot of the people that are devotees of his trade, of his craft.
I'm serious. I mean, this is one of the most despicable Americans in our history. How do you think
I agree with that statement.
Parents would feel about?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Well, the lawyer Mark Banks, who represented most of the Sandy Hook families, loved the scene. He told me that he thought the film was great.
Why did you do
Just a really pointed negative question that you just asked me.
Yeah, maybe it is. But you can take that.
No, it's just sort of like accusatory. It's putting me on like a bad vibe. Why did I do it? Well, I don't know.
Why did you do it? I'm curious.
There's certain surreal moments that just happen when you're filming something like this that you would feel remiss to not put in the final cut of your movie. Like,
but why did it happen? I'm just curious. What happened?
He asked me if I wanted to see his gym. Okay, we got to the gym. He took his shirt off and started lifting weights. He asked me if I wanted to try. So,
well, of course you say yes.
That's in accordance with the traditional standard and
I
pillars
think
of
that's really
journalism.
interesting.
Sure, I'll do it.
I find that interesting how that happened.
I mean, obviously that's how that happened. Like, this is that's a part of what makes Andrew Callaghan's his work so appealing, is the fact that he's a yes and he's a yes and journalist. Like, he isn't like, oh wait, my thing is on a different view. What was that? Poxborn has resubscribed. Thank you, Poxborn. I appreciate that. Thanks. And what's up? Happy New Year. Haven't seen you around in a while. Hope you had a great holiday. A part of Callaghan's appeal is he is a yes and what I mean when I say yes and it's a precept of improv comedy. The idea that when you're in an improv scene with a partner or a group of people, you always say yes and. You don't ever deny someone's contribution to a scene. So someone's like, I'm at the butcher and I'm gonna get me a slab of meat, and like, you're next, and then they throw it to you. Like, you don't say, actually we're at the car wash and no, because then the vibes get off, the whole scene gets disjointed, the person you're working with starts to become a little bit antagonistic towards you because they feel like you rejected their idea, which you did if you do that. So like, the whole idea is yes and, like, okay, I recognize your contribution, I accept it, and I'm going to build on top of it. And then that's when you start to vibe with your improv partners. That's when you start to like, and when you get comfortable with them and you do that enough, then yeah, that's when you get really good at just, riffing off the top of your head and creating great scenes out of nothing. And then that's when people get comfortable with you. That's how you get comfortable, in scenes when you act with people, whether you're acting in a movie or on stage in improv. And it is disarming. It's also a mechanism with which you disarm people with. When you show that you're willing, they toss something out at you and you're willing to accept it, take it in, and just roll with it, then they're going to be a hell of a lot more receptive to what you toss at them. You yes and their thing, they're going to be more likely to yes and your thing. And if you're a journalist that's trying to get something out of someone, that's a pretty nice arrow to have in your quiver there. So he is a yes and journalist in that capacity, in that if Alex Jones shows him his gym, of course, like Alex Jones always takes his shirt off. That's just the thing he does. Of course he's going to take his shirt off. Why wouldn't he? He's a maniac. So of course he's going to take his shirt off at the gym. He's going to start lifting weights. And if he says you want to get in on this, you yes and. You go, yeah, sure, no problem, man. Take your shirt off. Go down there, start lifting, do all the crazy shit that he wants you to do, within legal bounds. And, you end up with, a guy you're going to interview who is more susceptible to, tossing things out at you. He feels good about it, rather than going into an interview at a hostile and antagonistic sort of way. Like, a great example, the question that she asked that led to this moment where Callaghan himself is like, you just came at me with some accusatory stuff and now my vibes are off. Like, he's literally explaining, through her own example, why he did what he did with Alex Jones, rather than how she approached him. It's an interesting dichotomy watching this interview talking about the opposite of this interview. Happy New Year to you too. Thank you. I appreciate that. Good start to New Year so far. His interview on Fear and with Hasanabi, don't agree with everything he does, is a good one that goes a bit deeper into why he showed things, the choices he makes. I'll have to watch that. Or listen to it. I don't know. I've never listened to that podcast, but I do watch Hassan stream every now and then, and I know he's buddies with Callaghan. I think that's how I was introduced to Callaghan. Like, during the pandemic, I think Hassan was reacting to All Gas No Brakes, and I was like, what the fuck is this? So I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I mean, I think he's a great interviewer for that reason. Like, being a yes and interviewer, like being willing to take whatever concept the crazy ass dude across from you is throwing at you and just absorb it and run with it. Like, he did that when I think one of the things he did during the COVID year, he went to South Beach, and like it was just people just partying like maniacs. And this was like in the middle of the pandemic. There were no vaccines, no anything. Everyone's just raw dogging COVID. You get it, you just got it. There's no treatments, no pills, nothing. The concept of ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, all of that stuff didn't even exist. Like, it was that early on in the pandemic, and people were just partying. He was down there in Florida, and he was there. I think he had a mask on. Nobody else around him had one on, but like, they would still be like, hey, why don't you get on this, why don't you do that? He would do it. Like, question the you can question the intelligence of those decisions, but if nothing else, it certainly made those videos a hell of a lot more entertaining. And it made those people ingratiated to him. He wasn't going up there, he may have been wearing a mask, but he wasn't wagging his finger in anyone's face. So, I mean, that has value, especially as an interviewer that's trying to get close to people, that's trying to pull some information out of people. That has a lot of value.
The family, the QAnon family. Did you meet them there in that first scene? Did you meet them at the protest?
What you saw was me first meeting them.
And then what happened? How did you...
That family was
very
depressing.
rare interview.
That QAnon family was depressing.
How did you speak to them at home? What happened?
I mean, I feel like when you talk to people and just keep an open mind and really let people speak and ask them why they're there and what's on their mind, these doors kind of open. So I was there, and I'd never seen someone so young at a rally like this, particularly holding a megaphone and being encouraged by his father to yell about, the Clinton blackmail pedophile rings or whatever. So I basically just got the dad's number, went to their house, and interviewed the kids.
This young man, he's rattling off QAnon conspiracy theories like they're baseball stats. What?
Yeah, that scene was rough, but like honestly, when I saw that, what came to mind to me, controversial statement here, it just reminded me a lot of just like being a kid whose parents, forced them to go to church, and I would go to church and I would know what to say. I had no fucking idea what any of it meant. We would sing hymns that were all written by 14th century bean farmers. And it's like, what does any of this shit mean? What does this mean? Like the Lord's Prayer? What is the Lord's Prayer is written so esoterically that it's amazing that any small child could recite it. And hell no, they're not going to know what any of it means. They just know that it's some shit they got to say, whenever it's time to go to church. And that's kind of the vibe I got when I saw those QAnon kids, where it's like, okay, they're saying all this stuff, Clinton and pedophile rings and all of that. But I don't know if they really know what they're saying. They're just saying it because, their mom and dad, is saying it. And, they feel like if mom and dad is saying it, then I'm going to say it and mom and dad's going to like me for saying it. It's really disturbing. But I didn't feel like, I didn't feel any compulsion to condemn those kids for having stupid beliefs, because I don't think that's anything those kids actually ever believe. It's a 6-year-old. What does a 6-year-old really believe? They believe in Santa maybe, but I don't know if they have any real strong beliefs about the Federal Reserve. If they do, then they're already fucking lost. Yeah, I do love Hassan's stuff. Not heaps of content for leftists who like to joke and have some fun too. Wait. Not heaps of content for leftists who like to joke and have some fun too. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of leftists that like to have fun. There's a lot of super serious people on the left side of the equation. Kind of annoying too. So if you could find them, if you could find leftists who joke and have fun, by all means, be fans. If they aren't, shitheads. Raw dogging COVID. Yo, what's up, Murdoch J? How you doing? Welcome back to the stream. Andrew mentions he met the Q Kid recently, and he said it was all bullshit. He realized after the storm didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, and that maybe that's, and it could be that this is the best case scenario for this kid. Like, he had this experience really young in life, so maybe as he gets older, it makes him less susceptible to ridiculous bullshit. I hope. I can only hope that that's the trajectory that he's on now. Just remember when you were duped as a child and then humiliated in a in a nationally broadcast documentary.
What are you thinking when that's happening?
What do you mean?
I mean, as you said, you'd never heard something like that.
Definitely, it's concerning, for sure. Makes me worry about the future of the family and how many other kids are in that same boat. It makes me hope that parents who feel that way don't homeschool their kids and allow their kids to be exposed to a diversity of ideas.
Oh, those parents who feel that way specifically homeschool their kids.
And just maybe don't get their kids super involved in politics and let them make their own decisions.
I couldn't help but juxtapose that little kid with your nephew, was it?
Yeah, Roman, my nephew.
And I felt bad for the little kid too,
For Roman?
No. He's having the time of his life. No, the comparison was pretty amazing. And when you saw the kid again, did you go back? I mean, was this, how much time later was that?
I met up with the family about 3 months after the Capitol riot to kind of figure out where they were at. And spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you guys what they said. I know you guys just saw it. It was interesting because the kid was very much like, oh, the storm didn't happen. And the storm was supposed to be a mass arrest event where Trump would mobilize the military and arrest the members of the deep state, like Clinton, Soros, all that. I think when that didn't happen, it let a lot of people down, and especially for grown adults in the movement, it really hurt their pride. It made them feel like they had been duped and had, followed this rabbit hole toward nothing. And a lot of people said this storm was the friends that we met along the way. So the kid was more logical, and he was like, I feel like they just lied to us because none of the predictions of the Q universe ended up fulfilling themselves. So the kid basically explained to me that he felt like they manipulated his dad the entire way. And it was just sad to see.
Sad, but it's also, the kid was like the smartest, most clear-eyed. It was like a child was seeing what seems like a lot of other people couldn't see.
Yeah.
That's good reporting.
Thank you so much.
Right there. By the way, does everyone know who Jerry Springer is? Or is like, I'm so dating myself?
Okay, so the purpose of the scene is it's a double-edged sword because most young people my age are not engaged in politics. So they're not going to want to watch a movie that is specifically about the Capitol riot.
You were on their side. You were dancing on the stage.
I don't know what that was in reference to.
You know,
his appearance at the at a MAGA rally.
Told you they felt betrayed by you.
Well, just to clarify, no one thinks that I'm on their side. Everyone that I was interviewing at these, different right-wing events, I wasn't lying to them and telling them that I was.
I'm not saying you did, but they might have thought that, yeah.
Not really. I think that a lot of people felt like I've spoken with some conservatives and they felt like I didn't give enough credence to voter fraud theories, which I've heard them all, and I haven't heard anything that makes any sense. So, like I said, I think a lot of people on the right wing, their pride got hurt after the Capitol riot. Especially because they no longer backed the blue at that point. I think that was a crucial lapse in character.
Yeah, and maybe hurt again by, seeing it up on the screen, expecting a different outcome,
Yeah.
And talk about your methods, because you don't correct them in real time.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. Why would you?
Slam dunk or belittle someone or catch them in a contradiction might be appealing to a more liberal viewer who just wants to demonize these people and make them feel as dumb as possible. But in reality, I actually am more curious about how they got there and how they were radicalized and what we can do to help people like that in the future, as opposed to slam dunking on someone for the benefit of my viewership.
Is there...
It's a solid take.
Is there possibly another reason to do it? Because I can see someone seeing this film and...
basically she's just so Andrew doesn't really do anything that's super different than what The Daily Show does when they send Jordan Klepper or somebody out to a MAGA rally. And Jordan Klepper, when he's doing this sort of man on the street type beat, he will do it isn't a direct or confrontational sort of fact checking or slam dunking or anything. It's more of because he always posits himself as being hey, Jordan Klepper is basically the type of person that this woman seems to think Andrew Callaghan is. He will be yeah, I'm one of you guys. I'm here for the Trump rally, and then he will do the sleight of hand fact checking and dunking and whatnot, and catching people in contradictions and catching people in hypocritical statements and all of that. That's what The Daily Show does, and there never really seems to be. I guess it depends on what kind of satisfaction you're trying to get out of that, because to me, the satisfaction that I would want to get out of a scene like that is somebody, walking away from, they're walking away from having dire radical beliefs. So if they believe in all the QAnon stuff and then they get caught in a contradiction or whatever, and if they were oh man, I'm gonna give up all this Q stuff as a result of that, then yeah, that would be valid and worthwhile. But that never happens. That doesn't happen. It never will happen, because people don't respond to ridicule and contradiction and patronization and condescension. They don't respond to those things that way. Quite the opposite. They're more likely to double down than anything else. So if I'm not going to get satisfaction in that manner, the only other way you can get satisfaction from those moments is if, you just want to feel good about, someone else's perceived humiliation. And I say perceived because maybe they don't feel humiliated. Maybe people who believe in the same thing that other person believes in don't feel like he should feel humiliated. But because you have a certain belief that's contrary to theirs, I'm not even talking about whatever we want to consider being fact, if it's a factual statement or whatnot. Just whatever you feel from an interaction, like, oh man, this guy makes me feel so angry. Oh, he dunked on him. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel better. Like, that's not satisfaction for me. I don't ever get satisfaction from shit like that. There is a moment, like, it's not to say that doesn't happen in this movie. There is a remarkably incredible moment in this movie where that happens. But I think in the context that it happens in this movie, it's towards the end of the film. I think that there's a lot of value in, and if he doesn't talk about it, they may talk about it later. If he doesn't talk about it, I'll explain it later. But what she's mentioning here, like, there isn't really any real substance to gain off of like fact checking people at a Trump rally or whatever, or fact checking people at a CPAC event. Like, there's no value in that. There's no value. They're already going to be antagonistic towards having their worldview challenged, you know. So you're not going to get anything out of it. They're just going to become more antagonistic, more hostile, more dug in, which is the opposite of the direction that you would want to go in.
Believing it or having their thinking confirmed. Again, 40% of Americans think.
Wait, you're saying believing the Stop the Steal conspiracy?
Not just in this film, but in any film where a reporter doesn't, like DanikaXIX.
So kind of what you're saying is you think that someone could watch this movie and then become a Stop the Steal?
No. I'm thinking that somebody who already believes it could see it and think, yeah, that's right, because there's no correction. I'm saying that there's another possibility for another reason for a correction, which isn't to demean someone. I've already told you. I mean, some of these people break my heart. You know, it's not about demeaning them. It's about just in the moment correcting it. Donny O'Sullivan, CNN, who spends a lot of time with right-wingers, I think is a really nice way of saying, you know, that's not true.
And how do they feel about that organization?
I'm
saying they scream fake news every time they see a CNN group.
But they were going to feel the same, but at least he has corrected the record. I'm just curious about your method.
Yeah, this doesn't really work to get to the core of what someone is saying and why they're feeling that way. There is, I'm sure, a purpose for fact checkers, and but I don't have the stats with me at all times, and I'm more curious about canvassing like broader radicalization strokes.
Yeah. And you say, I mean, I'm hearing you. You've thought this through. You spend a lot of time, if I'm correct, before you actually roll. You actually talk to people and spend a lot of time. And I'm hearing you say in some reading that I've done that you have a lot of imitators now who maybe aren't taking the same care you do. What's going on?
Who?
I heard you or maybe read in one of the articles that you say there's like 30 people who show up with your style or what they think is your style, but you object to what they're doing.
I don't know when I said that, but I don't want to like talk down on anybody.
Oh, really? Because what you said in this article, and I don't know if it was the San Francisco Chronicle or the Stranger.
There are a lot of
I
pretenders.
found it pretty disturbing, which is that there were people going out thinking they were doing what you were doing.
Oh, okay. So I'm not referring to my political coverage. I'm saying a lot of people cloned my early like Quarter Confessions era, like Man on the Street Zoom coverage, and it's kind of taken over TikTok in the recent months. So the internet's now oversaturated with man on the street coverage, like college parties and campuses with crash zooms and stuff like that. So I feel like the man on the street interview's been definitely overused for sure.
And that they're tricking people.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm saying I don't really see too many people doing political reporting like I do.
Right. Okay. So you just meant. Yeah. But it sounds like, in your view, that's a more abusive form of journalism.
What?
They're tricking people. Is what the phrase you used. Let's move on. It's not meaningful to you.
I want. I can't get fired. We have no corporate backing. There's no one whispering in my ear telling me how I have to cover something. I have no limits as far as that.
Is that what happened with your previous venture? Was it because you were told?
All Gas No Brakes was more or less, taken away from me because I was focusing to cover political issues like the protests in Portland and Minneapolis, and Doing Things Media, the company that owned All Gas No Brakes, was trying to make me pivot back toward party content like college parties because they thought it was more marketable for their brand.
That had a sting. They even took the RV, I understand.
They took the RV, but we got a new one. It's all good. I was tired of living in the RV.
I was wondering why he left All Gas No Brakes.
I think we can talk in this room about the ending because we all saw the movie. What happened with the biggest proponent of the pedophile conspiracies who turned out?
So this is what I was referring to earlier.
When did you start investigating that?
Oh, I knew it the whole time.
Well, okay, now some would say that's burying the headline. Why did you?
Who would say that? Said some. When you say some would say that, it says sounds like it's what you're saying.
Joke in reporting. It's kind of like, God, you buried the headline. Why did you wait, 10 minutes to tell me that?
Some would say it's best to save the best for last. You know what I mean? Because if I told you at the beginning that this guy was a convicted pedophile,
You mean he hints at it? He hints at it at the beginning. He said the guy can't leave his state for some reason. He knew the reason. When he said that, I was like, there's some reason, but he didn't say it right up front. It's showmanship. There is some degree of showmanship that has to go into this stuff too.
It's all about it's all the projection theme too that we try to talk about at the very end. Yeah,
that's again stunning. How did you find? Yeah.
So basically, what he's talking about here. There's a dude he meets at the beginning of the documentary, some psycho who lives out in the woods, surrounded by a bunch of guns and weird flags and shit. And he's prominent. I don't know if prominent's the right word, but he's big online for being a huge Q person, and he's always talking about pedophile rings and shit like that. And he becomes a little bit of a runner in the documentary. Andrew goes back to him several times, and then after the climax of the movie, during I guess what you would call the denouement, if I can get fancy with it, he's at a diner with this guy and he's talking to him, and he's basically showing him pictures of various prominent political figures or media figures. He shows him Oprah Winfrey and he goes pedophile, and he shows him Hillary Clinton, he goes pedophile. He shows him Joe Biden, and he's like, here's your first kind of giveaway that something weird is off with this dude. Well, not the first, but here's where you get a sense of where this is going as soon as he shows him Joe Biden, because he calls Joe Biden chomo, and Andrew is like, what? Wait, what is chomo? And the dude is like, it's a jailhouse term for child molester, and it's like, okay, dude, how do you know what jailhouse terms for that mean? This is suspicious. If ever there were flags that should have been going off. Shortly after that, Callaghan pulls out a sheet of paper and is like, in May of 1998, you were arrested for, they list some, deplorable things he did to an underage person. And the dude, he didn't deny it. Well, he didn't outright deny it. He said it was a false conviction, but he did not. He confirmed that that is on his record. That was him that had to go through the process. And it's like, okay. So that's been a long running thing that I have said. It's like the people who scream groomer and shit the loudest are the ones who need to scrub their hard drives when the feds come knocking. It's always projection that way.
And I mean that. How did you find that out? Were you researching everyone that you were talking to, or?
Yeah, Evan Gilbert Katz, who does a lot of our research and pre-planning, he found this guy because he had been really into his videos for a long time, and he was posting on BitChute 15 times a day.
What's he called again?
Net Force Truth USA, something like that. Oh, The Inglorious Patriot is his name. And yeah, this dude would be exposing 15 deep state pedophiles a day. Like 9 p.m. He's like, new one, Eminem exposed. Like Eminem lyrics backwards and being like, you hear that? I said kid over and over. But yeah, Evan knew it seemed like the right guy to talk to.
Yet these people have no problem with Kid Rock, who actually wrote a song for a cartoon in which the lyrics were, some say it's statutory, I say it's mandatory. He wrote those lyrics to a song, Kid Rock, for a cartoon movie called Osmosis Jones. Some say it's statutory, I say it's mandatory. They don't have a problem with Kid Rock. Not a problem at all. Eminem, but Kid Rock, clean.
He does a lot of numbers, maybe like 5,000 views a day, but when you're talking about the tightest far-right echo chamber, that's a pretty big number.
How did you feel sitting with him, knowing what you knew?
It's a pretty scary feeling, like definitely that confrontation, Chris Hansen style scene that I filmed with him at the end. It's probably the scariest scene that I've filmed in my career reporting, because I'm not typically confrontational, but I had to do this part. And he had a loaded gun on his waist, which he's not allowed to have that, being a registered sex offender and everything. So that was tough, for sure. I was scared.
Well, and what about the fact that you spent a lot of time with Enrico Tarrio, who's on trial now?
Oh, that guy is a huge shithead.
What about it?
How does that feel?
Good. I mean, yeah, it's good. As a journalist, it feels good to get interviews with important people.
It should.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, do you think...
Wait, what? I don't remember that. Are you serious? Please hold. Please hold. Let me see. I don't want to play the whole song because that'll get me DMCA'd. I just want to see if I can find that section. It's this song, though. It's this song. Let me see. Let me make sure the YouTube dogs aren't being sicked on me. Here it is. There it is. Did you hear it? Murdoch J, did you hear that? One more time. One more time for the people in the back. Kidney Rock. He even felt so confident in that line that he had to brand it. He had to brand it Kidney Rock. Kidney Rock. I know, Suki. That's a moment in history. Yeah, pretty crazy, huh? When was this? I haven't seen the movie for a while. When did this movie come out? Osmosis Jones, 2001. Okay, 2001. I've actually never seen this movie. Some say that's statutory, but I say it's mandatory. There you go. Just had to do one last time. One last time for clarification. He's cool though. He's cool. He's fine. Hey, okay. Him and Ted Nugent. No problems. No problems at all.
The election was stolen. Yeah.
Somebody asked, do you think
The election was stolen.
They allowed this on a kids movie. It's PG-13. So still, yes, kids. Yes, kids. Still kids. PG-13, still a kids movie. Yeah, nothing more to say than that. It's a kids movie. I mean, it's not G. It's not G or PG. So, I guess it's got that much going for it if you want to have even a little bit of charitability towards it. But it is still a kids movie.
Feel free to reveal that right now. And on my program later, we cut this down. Do you feel you ever manipulated people? Or, sometimes I'd see you nodding when, Alex Jones was talking. I do that too. I'm just kind of going, I hear you. But do you ever feel that you were communicating to people? You say they didn't think you were on their side, but do you ever feel that you did do any of that?
Why is she harping on this
No,
part?
not really. I mean, half the time when you see me nodding, I'm pretty much like spacing out entirely. That's kind of how I am. And after, I'm like, wow.
Isn't that a kids movie? How'd they get past approvals? Your guess is as good as mine, man. I mean, it could. I don't know. I mean, it's a great question. I can't provide an answer for you on that one. It did. Somebody approved it. I would be willing to guess that not a lot of people really pay too much attention to whatever music they were approving for. But I mean, it's a music-based movie, so I have to imagine that isn't the case. I know, Suki, I know. How come every time you want nothing to do with me all day, and then whenever I start streaming, all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm going to claw you if you don't pet me. Without fail.
That was a great interview. No, I don't think so. I mean, by not actively, part of what a journalist does is not necessarily revealing your hands. Try to remain objective and don't actively reveal your cards or your...
Now that you guys know that little snippet of movie trivia, I want you to disseminate that out to as many people as you can. I want a lot of people to know that Kid Rock did say, what was the actual line?
Some say that's statutory, but I say it's mandatory.
Some say that's statutory, but I say that's mandatory. Make sure as many people as you know that that's a line that Kid Rock said in a children's cartoon.
Personal opinion or bias in the moment. So no, I don't feel that I'm manipulating.
Yeah. What happens going forward, especially with this film out? A lot of people knew you and your oversized jacket.
Yeah.
And your hair. You're pretty identifiable.
Thank you.
The bobblehead, you could, because you
I am dropping a bobblehead in February.
Are you? I would have told
Man.
But do you feel, is it going to be harder for you to wade into situations?
If I say the wrong thing on this press tour, possibly. But with the coverage alone, no. I don't think so. As long as we stay independent, I think that we'll be okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just gonna get right back into the field as soon as this is over. We're gonna head to the border, do some border crisis coverage.
And is this for an HBO special? Or?
No, for Channel 5.
For Channel 5.
Yeah.
What do you want to do there? There's so many things.
At the border?
Yeah.
Document the refugee crisis.
Okay. I mentioned the comparison to Hunter Thompson isn't one, and I could be wrong, but this is what I thought I'd read, that it's not one that you really embrace. Why?
Because he's a writer.
Fair point.
He just talked a lot about taking drugs and such, and that was kind of what his gonzo was taking acid at the Kentucky Derby, which respect to that, but I'm just not really a drug guy, so I don't really like the comparison that much, but he's definitely a legend. Rest in peace to Hunter Thompson for sure. I'm more inspired by like Louis Theroux and early Daily Show stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I thought, again, I could have misread something, but I thought you said something pretty profound. You just kind of said it, whereas Hunter Thompson, his thing seemed to be, you know, getting on drugs or drunk and going to a baseball game. So, you know, kind of messed up, but at a very kind of standard thing. Whereas your thing is you very soberly.
Sometimes.
You'd
be surprised.
That we can tell. But at least your demeanor is very sober, and that arm is out, and you go into chaos.
Yeah.
He's the chaos.
Exactly. See, you nailed it. That was perfect. That's exactly it. He is the storm. I go in.
Let's see. First time chats from Zerks13. Welcome to the stream. I think you need to quote the full lyric there. It's a full lyric there, as it is much worse. Is it really much worse? Young lady. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh God. Young lady. I don't even know if I want to say it. Like, yeah, you're right. Oh, jeez, it's right there on the screen. I just feel the need, since it's being projected on the stream too. These are not the thoughts of chatter Zerks13. These are the official and authorized lyrics of a Kid Rock song, used in a children's cartoon. I guess I did too good of a job when I went to the spot. You're right. That was the full line. I did Kid Rock a huge favor by cutting off the first part of that line. I'm just trying not to get, the YouTube robot to shoot me down, but I you're right. Thank you for bringing that back to my to the forefront of my memory. Well, both thank you and also damn you for bringing that back to the forefront of my memory. That is the full line. Young ladies, I like 'em underage, see? Some say that's statutory, but I say that's mandatory. To quote Kid Rock. Oh, boy. Just in case you had any doubt, to the intention of that part of the song. Yeah. Brutal shit, man. I don't know how that got approved. I wonder if there's something in the about the soundtrack. Like, they've got to talk about the soundtrack. Soundtrack failed to make it to any billboards, but Trick Daddy's single "Take It to the House" made. Okay, so does that Kid Rock song have its own page? Cool Daddy Cool? No, it doesn't. Who is Joe C? Oh, God, it was Kid Rock's hype man? Nope. Looks like there's nothing specific about it. I guess maybe nobody watched this movie. Was this movie a hit, or did it flop, or what's going on here? I've never seen Osmosis Jones. Budget $70 million, box office $14 million, so it was a colossal dud. No wonder. This movie... so 56 based on 111. Box office. Osmosis Jones had its world premiere at Grauman's Egyptian Theater before being widely released. Upon its original release, the film was a financial stump and was the penultimate project produced by Warner Brothers Feature Animation. Preceded by Iron Giant? Iron Giant is amazing. What a fucking way to follow that up. Or... God damn. The film opened at number 7 its opening week of box office. Accumulating gross. The film was a box office bomb, unable to recover its $70 million. So that's why nobody's really, examined it, is because no one saw this movie. I certainly didn't. Brutal, man. That's brutal. Well, for a first-time chat, Zerks, you certainly brought it. Kudos to you on that. God damn. I feel like I need to give my stream a scrub now. Got to get a power washer and just wash this thing down. Get it back to being clean and sparkly. But remember, Kid Rock's cool. Him and Ted Nugent, they're perfectly fine. Eminem, not so much. Kid Rock, acceptable.
To the storm.
Literally.
The storm's coming.
Well, but I wonder too if it's also because I loved Hunter Thompson.
You met him before?
Yeah, I mean, I'm old.
What was he like?
He was actually very sober. And I think the takeaway with Hunter Thompson is it's kind of Shakespearean. I wondered if you used it as a cautionary tale as well. Here's a guy who was a terrific writer, but he created this character, and then when he just wanted to do straight ahead, fantastic reporting, outlets, he had a hard time getting outlets to pick him up because he was gonzo.
It's funny, I actually didn't even know that. It's very interesting. So you're saying in the latter half of his career, before he kind of moved to Colorado in isolation, he wanted to do more straight-laced, like factual reporting?
And he couldn't. And
They wanted him to be crazy acid guy.
no,
They just didn't want him.
There are those who did, and then there are those who thought he was, and that's not what they wanted.
Interesting. So the expectation wasn't met.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
Man, I wish he was alive. I'd love to talk to him. He is a big inspiration. I just like he more inspired my like hitchhiking adventures, like some of my teenage journeys and like the road philosophy, like road warrior stuff.
me too.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you sneak in and out of KOAs because you couldn't pay for them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I feel so bad about that. 50 years ago, but anyway. Yeah, and yet, he took his life. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just asking you
No, it's a great
separately, how do you go forward? If people have an expectation of you that you're going to be a certain way, now maybe you're going to want to be a certain way, but you're 25. So do you worry about becoming so much of a brand that you can't move out of it?
No.
Because I just,
All right.
I just feel like mainstream media didn't do enough to expose some of these voices like Alex. He's been around for decades.
They're doing a lot right now.
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
late,
doing a
but
lot for a few months.
yeah.
Wait till January 6th in a couple days. Turn on the TV. there's gonna be tears.
Or turn on your movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so. It's the 6th today, and at least my Twitter feed's been very quiet. I don't know what else has been going on out there.
My earphone failed.
Anybody got something? Want to yell something out?
Oh,
It's really stressful putting yourself in these kinds of situations. So
was it stressful?
Yes, it was stressful.
Putting yourself.
It was pretty stressful. It's still stressful.
how do you deal with that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Good amount of sleep, vitamins.
Do you feel safe?
No. Kind of, depends. Right now, I feel safe. But, yeah. Ukraine did not feel safe. Million Bag of Mark's not that safe. It just depends who you're talking to. It depends how late it is at nighttime. It depends if you're trying to be on the front lines or get like a bat, I don't know. No, not really.
All right. Well, I think we're going to thank you, and we're going to thank all. One question. Why not? We don't usually do this, but go ahead.
In all the verbal sparring you've heard, what's the best comeback you've ever heard?
Best comeback in my whole life?
Yes. You've heard a lot of fights.
One time I was at a conservative rally in Atlanta, and there was some counter protest on the other side, and they were arguing about politics, and some dude just yelled, "Your mom has an OnlyFans!" Ran up at top speed. Who's that guy? We tried to track him down, but he was gone like a flash of lightning.
That's pretty solid.
Single contribution to the political discourse.
Thank you, Callaghan. Thank you so much.
What a weird interview. The Majority Report. What a weird interview. Like, not particularly a bad one.
What's up, everyone? It's Endymion.
Where was I at?
NPR every day.
It's not a particularly bad interview,
Well,
but it was an interesting one. It was more contentious than it needed to be, and it wasn't like it was contentious because, like, she was trying to get some kind of crazy point across. It was contentious because she just seemed naive about his intention. You know, like, I guess maybe she has an understanding of what her perception of journalism should be, and his is so contrary to what her perception is that, you know, she had no other mechanism with which to encounter this interview with him but to like try to square what he does against what she does or what she's familiar with. And, you know, it just came off as seeming finger waggy. It's a great movie, though. This Place Rules on HBO. Definitely watch it if you haven't. If you don't have access to it, I'm sure there's some way you can gain access to it through more nefarious means. There's always a way. If there's one thing I figured out, it's definitely a worthwhile viewing. When it first dropped, I was a little hesitant to watch it because I figured like it was probably gonna. Even though I know I'm familiar with Andrew Callaghan, I know his stuff, always great. But I just figured that was just going to bum me out. And there were parts of it that did bum me out. The Q family was a big bummer. But it actually is... it's a really good documentary. It's really well done. And it's actually... It paints the lead up to the insurrection and the insurrection in a way that doesn't seem as bleak as you might initially feel it is. He talks to some dude who's like, the guy identifies himself as a Christian fascist. Like that's how he identifies himself. He's like, yes, I am a Christian fascist, and blah blah blah. And he starts going off on this spiel about like, you know, the psycho things that he believes in. And Callaghan just interrupts him by just very briskly and bluntly asking him, do you ever feel like you've gone too far down the rabbit hole? And the dude stops, and then he's like, and he basically just answers the question very honestly. He's like, he basically just says something to the effect of, yeah, but I'm in too deep now, and I know this is probably going to end with me dead, but, you know, this is what I'm doing, so full steam ahead. You know, that's basically how he answered it, and it was like, huh. That's a fascinating. It seems like he wasn't even. It wasn't even like he was devoted to the ideology of being a Christian fascist. It almost just seemed like, well, I already invested so much time in this. I did all that training. I have my license in fascism already. To switch tracks now, like I'm 12 credits away from getting my fascist degree. Switching my majors now is going to be such a hassle, and I wasted all that time. I just need to finish this out so I can get the degree. That's kind of how it felt when he answered the question, and you know, it really is like, man, I wonder how many more of these people kind of have such a slapdash sort of devotion to this ideology. Like they're all out on the streets, so they're at least motivated that much. But like, you know, and many of them, you know, were motivated to the point of like beating the shit out of cops and breaking into the Capitol. Like there was some serious motivation, but you saw how quickly it all died out, you know, when all the Q predictions didn't come to pass, you know, after Joe Biden was sworn in and Congress started legislating and, you know, life went on for everybody else. You saw how quickly like all of that shit just kind of dissipated. And even now, people were afraid that, you know, Trump announcing his 2024 campaign, they thought that was going to spark it all back up again. Like he's firing up the engine. It's going to be a return to the bad old days of 2020 and blah, 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 blah. But there's been no sign that there's any sort of energy or enthusiasm to the degree that there was back then. Like, I wonder how many of those people, and I know people are kind of juicing up Ron DeSantis right now. They're like, oh, it's DeSantis. He's the heir. You know, he's going to be the barnstormer. And it's like, dude, DeSantis has all of the charisma of like a fucking, you know, wet sock. I doubt that he's going to be able, like, there will be a degree of people who will fall in line and march lockstep with DeSantis because he's the dude. There's just gonna be, and you know, I was talking the other night with Shadow Knight about how there always just seems to be fighting on the left, and the right there doesn't seem to be that much fighting. And I kind of countered with, no, there's a lot of infighting in the right too, but when it's time to put the rubber to the road, they all fall in line, and they have their marching orders, and they get shit done, generally speaking. The Kevin McCarthy vote's kind of an outlier in that, which is what makes it so interesting to watch. But generally speaking, when they need to do shit, they've all marched to the same beat, you know. And if that beat is telling them that Ron DeSantis is the guy, you know, they're gonna fall in line and march to that beat. But I don't think he's gonna be able to whip up the level of enthusiasm that Trump was able to, because he just doesn't have that charisma, you know. He's lousy. He's pretty lousy at it, actually. He's not that much better than Jeb. So, you know, and Trump just lost his luster. Maybe he can get it back. I don't know. Maybe it's gonna take some rallies. Maybe it's gonna take some debates. I mean, that's really what does it for Trump, getting on the debate stage and then just lambasting these goons. That's really what did it for him. So, you know, maybe once they get back to the debate portion of the 2024 primaries, you'll see Trump, you know, possibly barnstorming his way back into mainstream relevance. But for right now, all of that is just so tepid. And when I heard that dude's response, I was like, no wonder these guys kind of fell off after January 6th. Like, this guy's just feels like he's going through the motions, you know? It really made me like realize that I don't want to call their movement toothless, because it's definitely not toothless, but it's kind of like the mirage that we all kind of fell for with respects to like the Russian military. When Russia was first starting to invade the Ukraine, we were like, oh no, Russia is just such a bigger country than Ukraine. They've got a bigger military and blah, blah, blah. They're a superpower. They're just going to stomp all over them. And then, like, you know, a year later at this point, like, Ukraine has just been handing Russian soldiers their asses left and right, you know, with way less soldiers and way less hardware. And it's like, okay, well, it's pretty clear now that, you know, the Russian military has pretty much shown their ass on this invasion. They weren't, you know, the huge, you know, nuclear weapons aside, they aren't the huge threat that people thought they would be. And I'm kind of getting that same vibe from this, like, super far right QAnon contingent, where it's like, maybe they were paper tigers all along. I don't know. You know, I would hope so. We'll see. We'll see as 2024 looms near. But, you know, keeping 2024 in mind, This Place Rules is definitely a timely and worthwhile viewing experience. And it's just fun. And Andrew Callaghan's awesome, so you should support him anyways. And scene. What are my cats doing? They're just going nuts in there. The other thing I wanted to watch, completely separate from, you know, that's my spiel. You know, and who was it? Lau? I think they were in my chat last night saying that I should do a political podcast. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I was putting some thought into it. I was like, maybe. I don't know. I don't talk about politics as much as I used to anymore. I just kind of sink into gaming. And a part of that is just a function of, you know, disillusionment, just widespread disillusionment. And the fact that thinking about it and talking about it a lot is a bummer. It's a bummer because nothing good happens. So, you know, kind of a mental health thing to take my mind off of that sort of stuff for a while. But it is fun it is interesting to talk about. It's fun to talk about at times. Maybe I'll do it. If I did do a political podcast or a political show, I would definitely make a concerted effort to not cover right-wing media. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit there and react to Ben Shapiro or react to Steven Crowder or any of that shit. There's too many dudes doing that already, and those guys have all the real estate they could ever want on YouTube. So, food for thought. The other thing I wanted to react to was this. If there's one thing people should know about me, is that I love Berserk. House of the Dragon, I liked it. It came out the same time that Rings of Power came out, and it was like a whole head-to-head clash of Rings of Power fans versus House of the Dragon fans, and I kind of sided more on the Rings of Power side, and everyone else I knew kind of sided more on the House of the Dragon side, so I was kind of in the minority on that one. But above all, as far as dark fantasy is concerned, like Berserk is my shit. I have a video. It was one of the first videos I did for this channel when I relaunched it. About, someone on Quora was asking about like their 13-year-old watching Berserk. And I was like, oh my God, no, do not let your 13-year-old watch Berserk. Like it is decidedly not for kids. And even beyond the kid thing, like I can't recommend that show to anyone because the themes of it are just so fucking intense. Sexual assault plays a very prominent role in the story and in the narrative, and in the development of characters even. So for that reason, and some pretty grisly images, I can't very freely recommend the show to people. But I do let them know. I'll tell them the two things. The two things I tell them are, it's one of my favorite things ever, but I can't recommend it. So I let them explore on their own, And if they get disturbed by anything, then it's like, hey, I told you I didn't recommend it. What can I say? You let your own curiosity get the best of you there. But Comic Book Girl 19, or DanikaXIX, as she calls herself on Twitch and Instagram and Twitter, I think too. She's rebranded everywhere but YouTube. I like her takes. Like I discovered her years ago when she was doing those Game of Thrones videos, and she did some pretty amazing Game of Thrones videos back then. And then she did some even better X-Men ones, and like those are like my two fandoms right there. So I've been all about her. She stopped doing YouTube content for a little while, started doing more streaming, movie watch-alongs, and I haven't been paying attention too much to those. But she just dropped this a little while ago. And I am very curious to hear her take on both of these properties.
My beautiful babies, today on the show, we're talking about the dark medieval fantasy series loved by millions of people around the world. Known for its graphic violence, explicit sex scenes, twisted political plots, epic betrayals, and huge flying beasts.
Oh, hell yeah! It's hot D time! House of the Dragon!
Oh, wait, no. I was talking about Berserk.
Berserk? What the fuck is Berserk? You know what? You're about to make me and all our followers go berserk and unfollow this fucking channel!
She always has some puppet.
So you're gonna sit there, looking like a Targaryen queen, and trying to talk about some weeb shit instead of House of the Dragon. Is that right?
Look, Berserk introduced a supremely ambitious, platinum-haired conqueror who will stop at
Griffith.
nothing to have their own kingdom way before Game of Thrones was on the scene.
Please tell me you at least watched the show, Danica.
Yeah, I watched it, and at first it was more of a hate watch thing, but then later I kind of got into it. But I feel like
I'm happy that she says that, because I never hate watched House of the Dragon. I'll tell you that much. I always generally liked it, but for the most part, I did think the show was pretty mid. Like there were some moments that were great. Like, I never got into any of the characters the way that I did with the original Game of Thrones, with the exception of Paddy Considine's King Viserys. Viserys was so excellently done on that show. Written, performed, everything about it was phenomenal. He embodied like so much personality and was such a likable person, that when you get to that moment in episode 9, like the penultimate moment really, where Viserys is shambling to the throne. Like the families are arguing, then he comes in and he's shambling to the throne. That is such a heart-wrenching scene. It is so heart-wrenching. and his performance just through and through. Like, Paddy Considine needs an Emmy. He needs an Oscar for that. I know Oscars are for movies more so than not for TV, but they should carve out an exception for him just for that one. He did an excellent job, and he made the show watchable for me, honestly. I know people talk about Matt Smith, and he was fine. I mean, he was generally just broody. He was just broody and kind of smirked in the corner for most of the time, and like I guess there's value to that too. I can't talk too much shit. I mean, I like Geralt of Rivia, so Matt Smith was good for that, for what it was worth, but he never really brought like more beyond that to me, I guess, than what Paddy did for Viserys. And their relation was great, and I loved the scenes that they shared. Like, the chemistry they had back and forth was amazing. They had better chemistry than Viserys and his niece, damn, I forget the character's name. Matt Smith's character, him and his niece, their chemistry was kind of shaky in my view, but that's just me. There are t-shirts and sweaters and shit of the uncle niece incest, on full display that people are out there fucking rocking, and if that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. Didn't do anything for me though.
The Dragon is just okay. I wasn't blown away by it.
I agree.
What I am currently blown away by is Berserk.
But the people are begging you to break Hot D down. Talk about the lore. Do like an epic history or something. Anything.
Fuck it. You're right. Let's talk about House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon is a prequel series taking place about 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. It's based on George R.R. Martin's novella, The Princess and the Queen.
He's never going to finish this series.
The end of the white-haired Valyrian rulers of Westeros. Season 1 of House of the Dragon shows the events leading up to the Targaryen Civil War of Secession, known as the Dance of the Dragons.
Round 1, fight.
And before you watched it, how did you feel about the show, Danica?
I'm not gonna lie to you, I was really bummed out at first on watching this show, and it's entirely due to the fact that Game of Thrones fucked up their ending.
There are so many people that feel that way. There are so many people that are like, they hated the way Game of Thrones ended so much that it carries, like, I don't know if Dan and Dave have done any work since that show. I think I may have looked this up. I may have looked this up a while ago. I think they're doing Netflix stuff right now. I think they had a Netflix deal. You don't hear their names at all like you did back then, obviously. Let's see. D.B. Weiss has been a director of the Leslie Jones Time Machine TV special. Co-directed with David Benioff. So they did that together. The Chair. He is an executive producer of The Chair. The Chair is an American comedy drama streaming television series. Okay. It's on Netflix. Executive producers, both of these dudes. Okay, so they did two things since Game of Thrones. The Chair and Leslie Jones comedy special. And I guess they did a movie called Metal Lords. Is this a Netflix movie? Metal Lords, American teen comedy drama, written by D.B. Weiss and directed by Peter Sollett. Okay, so D.B. Weiss wrote and produced this. Looks like Dave had nothing to do with it. Music by the dude that did the music for Game of Thrones. So it looks like he's done at least 3 things. What has David Benioff been up to? He was a writer for Gemini Man. Okay, that Will Smith movie. So he wrote Gemini Man in 2019. And then Leslie Jones Time Machine, The Chair. So they both have done basically 3 things. none of which really got any prominence. I guess Gemini Man is the most prominent thing they've done since Game of Thrones, or the most prominent thing one of them has done since Game of Thrones. They've fallen off, man. They've fallen off in an epic way. People hated that finale so intensely that, you know, my roommate, he was talking about how he didn't want to watch the show. Like, he hated the idea of it. He didn't want to, like, the entire franchise was ruined for him because of the way that it ended. And I was always like, for starters, yeah, it was a bad way to end the show, but I didn't dislike it nearly as much as everybody else did. I just thought it was like, all right, well, that just kind of petered out. That wasn't, you know, but I guess maybe I didn't. No, that's not true. I was a huge fan. I was a huge fan. I was going to say maybe I didn't have the devotion to the franchise as other people, but that's not true. I did. I just, you know, I guess the letdowns don't affect me that much. The letdowns don't quite affect me that much. That doesn't mean that I was looking forward to House of the Dragon. I met it also with a resounding mid when they were announcing it and talking about all the other Game of Thrones spinoffs they want to do. But it wasn't so much because, like, oh, the show just ended so awfully. It put a bad taste in my mouth. Like, it just didn't sound very interesting to me. And it still doesn't, honestly. And even after watching it, my interest has only ticked up a little bit. So I guess that's maybe the difference between me and other people. But I really didn't think that the ending of Game of Thrones was worthy of, like, I'm not saying it was good, and I'm not saying it wasn't bad. I don't think it was worthy of the intense levels of animus that it's generated since. Like, it's kind of out of control, honestly. And I don't know if I certainly don't think it's bad enough to have, you know, I don't want to say it's blacklisted Dave and Dan, because they are still working. They have their Netflix deal still. But you sure as shit don't hear about them anymore. They aren't the golden kids of Hollywood the way that they were, you know, during, let's say, seasons 1 through 4 of Game of Thrones. And a little bit of 5. Hello, hey Gabriella, how you doing? Welcome back.
So bad, and I still feel so betrayed by it that I have a hard time putting my faith in these showrunners that they're gonna.
She was also a really big fan of Daenerys, though, and I feel like a lot of that hate comes from the hardcore Daenerys fans. And to me, Daenerys' arc was the only one that made sense. Like, there are so many character arcs in that show that just kind of went in weird directions. Jaime suddenly going back with Cersei at the very end. It's like, what the fuck was that all about? Like, there are so many other things that I was just like, oh, this is weird. Arya being the one that kills the Night King, like, kind of cutting off Jon Snow's arc, you know, at the knees, and it's like, well, now what's the purpose of this dude? You know, what about all the Prince that was promised stuff? You know, like, it was just a whole weird thing. Like, but her arc was the only one in my view that actually made the most sense. It was like, yeah, it was inevitable that it was going to lead to this. Like, she was hardcore from the jump. You know, and she only became more hardcore with every tragedy that she faced along the way. You know, it started with, you know, her brother losing his mind, and then Drogo, you know, killing him, you know, and her brother was abusive to her, hella abusive to her. And then it escalated when Drogo died himself, and then she burned the witch alive, and then her dragons were kidnapped, and she burned all the wizards at that tower in Karth, I think, and you know, it just escalated from there. She locked all the calls after she killed all the slavers, and you know, went hardcore there, locked all the calls in a hut and burned them all. And like, she's always been super fucking hardcore. Like, her inclination is to burn the living shit out of everything. And so it was only natural that when she reached the moment of you know, coming face to face with the physical manifestation of all the bullshit she's been forced to deal with all her life, and like what it looks like to see a city that's betrayed her, you know, in her mind, the city that betrayed her family, that forced her to walk this grisly path, and these people that, you know, they bow to her usurpers and all of that. Like, of course it was going to lead to, you know, her committing war crimes. You know, it was only ever going to lead to that. And, you know, maybe the whole, you know, Jon Snow killing her at the end was kind of clunkily done, but You know, what can I say? It was gonna. I feel like that was also going to be a thing. They were never gonna live happily ever after and have a bunch of little kids for whatever reason. It just felt like that wasn't going to be the case. But you know, I think sometimes when people lionize someone in their mind and then that person takes a path that they should have expected but for whatever reason didn't, you know, that causes them to see things unclearly, you know. And I feel like the DanikaXIX thing is an example of that.
Lead me somewhere that's going to be glorious in the end. And I felt like I was just getting back into a toxic relationship where I'm just going to get burned. So
ironic.
I'm consuming this media with a 1 foot in, 1 foot out mentality, and I'm keeping my expectations very low.
And now, how do you feel about the show after seeing it?
Well, for starters, I really can't stand that goofy-ass MC Escher intro. It's nonsensical. It's totally ridiculous.
It's not.
It symbolizes the bloodlines.
I know what it symbolizes. I'm just saying it's a stupid concept. Nobody knows what those little symbols on those weird little knobs means. And even if you did know,
it's
they're not
supposed
on
to be
screen
Easter
long enough
egg-esque.
You can see what they are.
We can't even see
If you need
these two
people to make
shits.
YouTube videos to explain what your intro means, then guess what? Your concept isn't effective. The Game of
That
Thrones
is-
intro.
I think that is a true statement. I guess she's going to talk about it here, but I was just going to say that the first Game of Thrones intro is pretty on the nose. It's just a map of Westeros, and it shows you the locations that the show travels to in that given episode. So if they're going to be in Marine that episode, then on the intro map, the camera will swoop past Marine. Or if they're going to be in Winterfell, then on the intro map, the camera will swoop past Winterfell. It shows you like the development, where territorial boundaries change or where troop movements go, and like the intro is more than just an introduction in the first Game of Thrones show. The intro also kind of shows you, okay, this is the current state of this world. This is where we're going to take you as you come into this journey on this episode. And it looks cool.
Was really excellent. It's one of the best intros I've seen. It was this beautiful map of the world,
King's Landing,
showing you where all the different keeps are and the great houses who live in them. It was fun. It was educational. The animation was gorgeous. But this, it's a mess. And I also wish House of Dragon would get their own theme music instead of using Game of Thrones theme.
I agree with that statement.
Pavlovian hype response from the audience.
I agree with that statement.
Maybe they learned that trick from you, using your old theme music in your new show.
Whatever. Another issue I'm having with this show is that there are too many characters with similar sounding names.
I agree with this
We've got
statement.
3 Aegon Targaryens.
That's true. I got
2
confused.
Viserys.
Got confused there.
An Aemond.
Daemon, that's his name.
Rhaenys, Rhaenyra.
There's an
Rhaena,
Aemon and an Aegon.
Rhaena, Laenor.
Like 3 Aegons.
You sound like such an old person right now.
Speaking of aging, the aging up of actors on this show is all over the place.
I don't think so.
That Viserys has leprosy.
I don't think so.
Is
for starters, I think that Rhaenyra, the 2 actresses that play her that's an awesome job. That is just definitionally an awesome job. This is not bad. This isn't bad. This I can see it too. I mean, aging up characters by way of 2 actors is a tricky kind of ordeal. I've seen it done way worse than this for certain, but I don't really think this is a definition of. I don't think this is a good example of a failure in that. So I kind of disagree with that take.
all over the place. I get that Viserys has leprosy or whatever, but he goes from being a middle-aged man to the fucking crypt keeper. Meanwhile, Kristen Cole does not age a goddamn
That's true.
day.
That's very true, and I made that point too.
To just give him a beard.
Give him some gray hair.
In his hair.
Yeah.
At least with Daemon, they gave him different wigs to denote the passing of time, even though that's still super lazy. Like, at least they tried.
Uh-oh, here we go. All aboard the complaint train.
You're telling me it took 2 years to kill a crab guy with really bad psoriasis when they have 2 dragons? The costuming has really fallen off. Daemon's stupid dragon helmet is totally unforgivable. It looks like something from World of Warcraft's completely. And Laenor and Rhaenyra should have tried a lot harder to have kids. Is normalizing uncle-niece incest morally responsible? Is this
No.
show going to encourage weird uncles to molest their nieces?
I would hope. I would
Even
hope
if
not.
Viserys did want his Aegon on the throne, which he didn't, it's too fucking late.
Oh, there it is. Team Black confirmed. Danica is Team Black. I totally knew that you were gonna back the princess. Everyone knew it. We all saw it.
Ugh, and Rhaenys fucked up so hard. You're telling me that
That's
she has no problem
killing all of those people. Yes. Yes.
But then she's not.
She killed all of those people in her fucking Yas Queen intro on her dragon, and all she did to the royal family was just sneer at them. I'm gonna give you a haughty sneer and then fly off. It's like, meanwhile, you just murdered hundreds of innocent people. It's like, go the extra half an inch further and you know, Dracarys these motherfuckers. Like, it was absurd, made no sense, and made the character unlikable. Like, literally slaughtered all of these people right here. Like, they're just having a good time. There's a new king, sure, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're still gonna be fucking, you know, mining for turds and flea bottom or whatever they do down there. They're just trying to have a good time. It's the only time they get to take a break from their work and have a little bit of a celebration. Let them have their fun. But she just fucking
No problem killing hundreds of peasants, smushing them with her dragon, but then she's not gonna roast the traitors usurping the throne? She could have saved Westeros from a bloody civil war. She could have saved thousands of lives, but no, it wasn't her war to start. It's like, bitch, you wouldn't have been starting a war. You would have been ending one. You would have nipped it in the bud. It would have been done.
And that's why
Very
I'm
dumb
Team
scene.
Green, D. You see, women have soft hearts and really shouldn't be in positions of power. We need a man on the Iron Throne.
Oh yeah, because Viserys did such a great job. Don't get me wrong. I love Viserys.
How can you not?
He is
How could you
trying
not?
so hard to be a good man and do the right thing, but it's these very attributes that make him
it's Ned Stark.
a bad king.
It's Ned Stark.
I love the irony of his moniker, Viserys the Peaceful. He was named Peaceful because his reign was prosperous, there were no major wars, everything was stable, but it is his blunders as a father and as a husband that lead to this bloody civil war where all the people he loves are gonna try to kill each other. I mean, what a sad, epic fail.
So you could say he shouldn't have kept turning a blind eye to the political issues he created within his family?
Good one, Brock. Viserys is definitely the most compelling character in the series for me.
By a country mile.
Paddy Considine
He needs an
did a
Emmy.
Great
He needs an
job
Emmy.
in the role. It is an A+ tragic character arc. And that scene where he's at the end and he gets his family all together and they're eating dinner and he gets to see
That's a
them
great
getting
scene, too.
along for one moment before it all goes back to shit is so well done.
Oh yeah, he was sad. He just loves his family a lot. They're all assholes.
House of the Dragon certainly got better as the story progressed. And personally, I gravitate to stories that focus on characters and their interpersonal relationships, and that's what this is. It's a big old fucked up royal family drama. Is there anything that you'd like to add, Brock?
Oh yeah, I loved it when we found out that Lord Larys, the clubfoot oily man
Oh,
is
no.
actually a foot guy? I laughed my ass off when he was jerking off to the queen's toes. What a freak.
I meant, would you like to add anything about Viserys?
Oh, yeah. I loved the tension when we find out that King Viserys has no male heirs, and we see that he's literally starting to fall apart.
Yeah, and like as he's falling apart, so is his kingdom. I loved that.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and then he has to choose which kid to fuck? His daughter's teen bestie or the child he's related to? What a choice!
Personally, I appreciate all of the birthing horror in this series. Like in that first episode,
I got the
where
sense that,
baby is stuck
yeah.
and Viserys chooses to have the Meister cut the baby.
This show was definitely written by people who, I don't want to say, they didn't want to glamorize pregnancy and childbirth the way that it so often is in media. They definitely wanted to show that for women in an era where healthcare, isn't a thing, pregnancy can be a death sentence, which unfortunately became a apropos message in America post Supreme Court ruling. But yeah, I just got the vibe that, that was definitely a intentional message that the writers were trying to portray.
Out without anesthesia, and his wife's last moments are totally horrific, and then the baby dies anyways. It was so visceral. And it's extremely fucked up that this is a real thing that actually happens. Game of Thrones was known for showing these really brutal depictions of the battlefield. And I really appreciate that House of the Dragon is going out of its way to show the battle of the birthing bed. Mad respect.
Yeah, there's like 3 broads dealing with this gnarly childbirth shit. It's disgusting. Personally, I hate it. These are women's issues. Okay, this should be done behind closed doors. We should never talk about it.
You're telling me that you didn't think it was cool when Laena's baby got stuck and she chose death by dragon and set herself on fire? That was crazy. And then later, when Rhaenyra got really stressed and she gave premature birth to a deformed dragon baby with an umbilical cord wrapped around its neck? Whoa. And speaking of people giving premature birth to deformed demon
Oh
babies,
boy, here we go.
let's talk about Berserk.
Fine. We can talk about that stupid Viking show now if you want, or whatever it is.
Berserk isn't about Vikings, it's about Guts, a lone warrior who was born of a hanged corpse on a battlefield and raised as a mercenary who becomes a wandering swordsman until he meets his match and nipped it in the
Oops,
bud.
damn it. I didn't mean to click on that part. I just want to do a quick little scan. Oh, she mentions Hellraiser. That's funny. She posted the thumbnail for this episode on her Instagram, and I commented on it that I always thought that the Behelit in Berserk was homage to the puzzle box in Hellraiser, and I didn't know that she made that reference. Just making sure. There's a lot of stuff in Berserk that is like, would be TOS worthy. So I just want to make sure that none of that is going to be sneaking in here. There's some amazing art in it, though. There is some amazing art.
A lone warrior who was born of a hanged corpse on a battlefield and raised as a mercenary who becomes a wandering swordsman until he meets his match in Griffith, the beautiful and charismatic leader of the Band of the Hawk who dreams of acquiring his own kingdom. With Guts as captain of the Raiders, the Band of the Hawk rises to the top through their conquests during Midland's 100-year war with the Tudor Empire until things go horribly wrong.
Like how wrong? Ugh.
Really, really wrong. You'll never guess how wrong. This series is part Mad Max, part Fist of the North Star, part Conan the Barbarian, with heavy Hellraiser influences. There's also cute Star Wars references, definitely some Venom type business, plus nods to Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise and Ken Russell's The Devils. There's even a
I'm not familiar with that other one, Phantom of the
nods to
Paradise. That is definitely a Griffith. Phantom of the Paradise. I'm going to have to look into that.
Palma's Phantom of the Paradise and Ken Russell's The Devils. There's even a dash of one of my personal favorites, The Rose of Versailles. Berserk started in 1989 in the pages of Monthly Animal House and has gone on to inspire a number of A-plus shows and video games, such as Attack on Titan, Re:Zero, Final Fantasy VII, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and many, many more. It is one of the best-selling manga series of all time, and Dark Horse has been putting out these super sexy, oversized 7x10 deluxe editions.
Well, I'm going to have to look for that right this very second. How much are those? Those look like they would be very expensive, though. Wait a second. What is... There are really 13 volumes of these big-ass books? No way. That looks like it's it. What the fuck? Pre-order. Okay, this is volume 13 though. Volume 12. Oh man, what the fuck? How many pages is in this? Buy on Amazon. This is very expensive. Of course, I mean, look at it. Of course it would be expensive. It's like $50. It's $50 for a volume, you know, which if it was 2-3 volumes, I'd be like, yeah, let's do that. $50 a volume, let's do that. But for 13? Come on now. Well, it looks like there are some sellers on Amazon that at least sell it for a little bit cheaper than $50. This guy's selling it for 30. Volume 1. I don't know, man. Maybe I should. I love Berserk so much. It's a cool hardcover, though. I like it. It looks almost, it's like a legitimate fucking collectible book. Not the easiest thing in the world to read, to lie back in bed and read, but, you know, it would still be cool to have. Maybe I've got to put some thought into that. Maybe I'll make that my next purchase. I'm living like a monk right now, so it's 11:50. Usually this would be the time when I would log off and go hang out in the real world and have some drinks, but I have dedicated myself to hold on, let me see if I can. For this I need some monkly music. I need to get a soundboard, just have this shit queued up. Yes. For the month of January, I have decided to devote myself to complete and total sobriety. Granted, I'm not exactly a heavy drinker to begin with, but over the holiday week that I had off of work, I found myself falling back towards going to a bar that I know to have incredibly heavy pours and drinking more than I really should. And the result of that would be me waking up the next day feeling awful, both physically and mentally. I decided that it was my vacation, so it was a fine way to spend my time off, and I continued to do that day after day after day. I took a couple of days off from that, leading up to New Year's, but on New Year's Eve I resumed, and New Year's Day I woke up feeling again pretty terrible. So I decided to bring in the new year, I will commit myself to monk living. I will not drink for the month of January. I will radically restrict my spending only on the absolute necessities when absolutely necessary. And I will maintain this until February. I have to tell you, I'm being taxed pretty hard right now. It was a pretty tough week. Lots of emotionally draining stuff happening that has kind of made me want to blow off steam with a little sippy sip, if I may. But today was a good day. Today was fine. Today was a perfectly fine day, which honestly, it kind of made it a little bit worse. As I was getting ready to leave work, getting ready to leave my office, I look out the window and it's beautiful. Beautiful sunset. I'm feeling good about my work for the week, my contributions to the company. I feel good about that. I'm feeling good physically because I haven't drank in a while. And I feel like this would be a good night to just have a good time, to celebrate, tie one on, round out the week. I would like a drink. And then I said, hasn't even been a single week yet. Pretty rough to have that compulsion when I haven't even reached the 1 week mark and my goal is an entire month. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I also had the compulsion, the desire to go to my favorite sushi place, which is right down the street from my house. Excellent sushi, the best sushi I've ever had in my life. But I know that when I go there, I end up spending an obscene amount of money. I always have a great time, but I always spend an obscene amount of money. Now, it's been several months since I've been there. Maybe even almost a year at this point. And I had an itch, but I said to myself, nope. Monk living. I'm not going to spend that much money. I'm going to go home, and I'm going to eat something that I have in my fridge. Now, I will tell you right now, I failed in that one, but what I did eat wasn't very expensive. It was a pretty cheap chicken place right across the street. So, I'm going to give myself half a pat in the back for that. So, as I come across 11:55, I have to tell you that I'm going to keep myself committed to the no alcohol for a month. I have been substituting it with flavored soda water. I have this strawberry Waterloo right here. And the very last of my Trader Joe's sparkling green apple. I've got some Rambler out there too, but I got to get that in my fridge. What do you think about the documentary? Don't be totally sober. Master your willpower instead. Oh, I have. Don't get me wrong. I have complete mastery of that. I don't ever get like smash. The reason why I decided to do this though for this month is because, as an exercise in mastering my willpower, it's more about that. It's more about setting the goal, and then, exercising that mastery of my willpower so that I could know that if I ever wanted to do it, I have the power to do it. Usually whenever, like I said, I'm not really a super heavy drinker. When I go out and have a drink, I usually get like maybe 2 or 3. And I sit there and I read comics on my phone and have like a drink, and it's really not that big of a deal. But like I said, over my holiday break, I overindulged a bit, and then I decided, you know what? I'm gonna demonstrate to myself more than anyone else that I do have mastery over my, what limited vices I do have. I guess the vices that I have is, alcohol and sweets. And I actually cut the sweets almost completely out. It was real bad over the summer. It was real bad over the summer. But since I went on the keto diet, and I switched out drinking regular soda, and I drink Coke Zeros and these sparkling waters now. I don't drink candy. I don't drink candy. I don't eat candy anymore. And only over the holidays, whenever there are cookies around, I would have a few cookies. But usually I would like sit in my bed when I'm watching movie or watching TV, or playing a game, console game. I'd have some cookies, have some candy. I'd drink some lemonade, when I get off work, or drink some lemonade here, drink some lemonade there, or Sonic Cherry Limeade. I was super hooked on Sonic Cherry Limeades. None of that stuff. Haven't had that shit since August. So this is a further demonstration of my willpower. Like, I will succeed. It's 11:58 at this point. I'm in for the night. To answer your question, though, what I think about the documentary, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was super awesome. I had a lot of fun watching it. I'm a big fan of Andrew Callaghan, though. And I knew the vibe that I was getting into and going into it. And I say that because I already watched the NPR interview. I already watched the NPR interview with them, and it seemed like the woman that was interviewing him didn't understand his vibe. She had a lot of questions about basically his approach and his philosophy of journalism, of like gonzo style journalism. And it was kind of weird, and kind of contentious at some points, accusatory even. And I didn't quite understand who she thought she was interviewing, but it was actually a fascinating interview to watch for that reason. But I thought the documentary was great. It did an excellent job kind of documenting his experiences, covering protests and rallies and whatnot leading up to the insurrection. And just kind of getting in the minds of people that kind of believe some really wacky shit out there. There's a lot of people that believe wacky stuff. And what's important isn't so much that they believe wacky stuff. What's more important is why they believe wacky stuff. And I think that the documentary kind of goes a little bit into that. It was good, though. I liked it a lot, and I recommend it if you hadn't seen it. I'm assuming you've seen it, but if you hadn't seen it, I recommend you see it. Sweets are tough for me, too, especially all the choices of flavored soda out there. I thought it was great, too. Yeah, the flavored soda is tough, man. Like, got a Wendy's near me that has that Coke machine with, like, the million options on it. And if I'm ever eating at Wendy's, I always restrict myself to the Coke Zero, which is fine. The thing is, if you don't drink like regular sodas for a while, and I didn't, like when I first stopped drinking soda, I just drank water. It was just all water all the time. And it was about a month of just water before I was like, I'm going to try a Coke Zero. Once I did that, once I drank a Coke Zero after a month of just drinking water, it just tasted like a normal Coke to me. So now when I drink a Coke Zero, it just tastes like a normal Coke to me. It's like no big deal. And, I'm getting a little bit of caffeine because I'm not drinking coffee really. Getting a little bit of caffeine from it. I'm getting some flavor. Tastes like a Coke, but it has no sugar in it. So it's somehow the best of all worlds. I'm sure there's something in these Coke Zeros that's going to like give me some kind of illness later down the line. But I'll worry about that later. That's a future Devin problem. All right, let me get back to this. Yeah, this is $50 a pop, huh? Damn, that's expensive. It looks cool though. It looks really cool, and I do want a physical copy of Berserk because I've only ever read it digitally, like online. And I really would like to have it physically. Although I will also say, when I was reading Berserk, every time I would read it and then go to bed, I would have nightmares. It always gave me nightmares, which is weird because nothing else gives me nightmares. No horror movie gives me nightmares or anything like that. But reading Berserk right before bedtime, for whatever reason, always did the trick. So maybe I don't need a physical copy nearby. But it is sexy looking.
With over 600 pages. It's so big.
Oh, that's what she said.
Not from what I can see.
Hey, don't zoom in on that. It's proportionate, all right?
Lord
You
almighty.
never seen it hard.
I have volumes 1 through 11.
Seeing Andrew actually be serious at moments was fascinating. I'm not sure he did it many of his earlier videos. Yeah, his earlier videos were all like, you know, he would go to like a party on South Beach or something, or he'd go to a destruction derby, something weird. And it's hard to have serious moments in those situations. But yeah, it was interesting to see him in a moment of seriousness. I mean, he's not. That's the weird thing about Andrew, though, is that he always plays it straight faced. He's like the straight man in a comedy duo. Like, he always goes in pretty straight faced, and he'll talk to like the craziest people. But you know, when he's talking to these crazy people, he doesn't like try to match their energy or anything like that. He's just there, you know. And he has the curly hair and whatnot, so I guess maybe he looks a little unconventional, but like he's always pretty straight faced, and he's just asking a question and getting an answer from someone who, you know, has a wacky personality. Like, I've never really seen a lot of instances of him like matching energy, you know, with the exception of that documentary where he's bench pressing with Alex Jones. But even in that situation, you know, you could tell that Andrew is just doing it because Alex Jones. It's not like he was like, I need to. You know, Alex Jones is outperforming me. I need to match or surpass him in wacky behavior. And I think that, you know, in that NPR interview when they're talking about like all gas, no brakes pretenders, like the people out there that are aping off of his style. I think a lot of those types of people try to do that. They go to, you know, all of these weird events, and then they're like, I'm gonna be the one that, you know, tries to instigate something with, you know, all of these people at this, you know, Kentucky Derby rally or whatever. And, you know, that's a part of what makes Andrew Callaghan cool, is that he's just like, he just shows up and lets people be themselves. And, you know, a lot of those people, sometimes they're just regular, normal ass people, you know, but sometimes they're very not. But he's mostly, he comes across to me as mostly serious. Maybe that's also the edit, but, you know, it fits it works well in the non-political part of the stuff he does, but I think it's better in the political parts. And now that he's focusing more on political content, I think he's gonna shine a lot more. He mentioned in that interview that he wants to do something on the border, the migrant crisis. So it'll be interesting and fascinating to see what he's learned from the January 6th documentary and how he applies that to the border crisis. He finally gave his opinions, and I thought they were incredibly well worded to describe what exactly is going on. He realizes we're in the worst time of the most snake oil salesmen than ever before. Yeah, I mean, it is not. I kind of disagree with, I guess, maybe the latter part. Like, I don't know if there are more snake oil salesmen than ever before. I think the difference is that there are more people than ever before who are buying what the snake oil people are selling. Like, there are more people that are susceptible to the snake oil salesman than there were in years past. And I think the fascinating thing about his style of journalism is that he tries to understand why. Like, why are people more susceptible to snake oil salesmen now than in years past? You know, like, Donald Trump's been around for years, and the idea that he would become such an influential political figure based off of the ridiculous things he said, it's always been a joke. It's always been a joke. Even The Simpsons joked about it. It's always just been a joke. It was never thought of as a potentiality, but something made it possible. Something made it possible. And what is it? What made that joke, that universally accepted joke, an actual possibility? You know, and I think that you can get to a lot of the answers to a lot of those questions in the kind of reporting that Andrew Callaghan does. But there are also people that have, I remember leading up to 2016, I was watching, what's the dude's name? He was a dude on TYT, I think, Jordan something or other. And his whole thing was also kind of gonzo journalism. He would just go out somewhere and like interview random people. And I remember I think he was in Ohio. He was talking to people in Ohio about 2016 as it was coming up. And as he's just talking to these random ass people, I remember watching and thinking to myself, you know, Donald Trump's going to win this election. Like Hillary's not winning this. Like she's not winning these people over. Like and I always kind of suspected that she was gonna lose more than he was gonna win, just because of like the decades long smear campaign that, you know, has been going on towards her. But regardless of what you may think of her, like there were a lot of people out there that, you know, were expressing negative opinions, both not just of her, but of just, you know, establishment politics in general, and seeing and I guess believing that Trump represented the anti-establishment, you know, and him being a representative of the anti-establishment at a time when the establishment has never been more hated. You know, it's like, this dude's gonna win. Like, it's gonna win. You know, there's always been anti-establishment. That's part of it is also kind of like an interesting thing with like Bernie Sanders. Like, you know, I was always a supporter of Bernie Sanders, but I remember like, and I've been a fan of his since like 2006 and shit, like way before he ever ran for president. I remember when he announced that he was running for president, like I was like, yeah, okay, cool, Bernie's my dude, sure, whatever, I'll vote for Bernie. But I said that not at all expecting him to gain any traction. I thought he was going to be like a Dennis Kucinich type character. Like, this is this election cycle, Dennis Kucinich. He's going to get on stage. He's going to say some shit. He's going to get like 4% support, maybe. And then that's going to be the end of that. I never would have guessed it would have taken off the way that it did. And it's not because he was selling anything that nobody's ever heard before. Again, we've always had like Dennis Kucinich type characters, Mike Gravel type characters, and all of that. But there was just something about the environment that he and it sucks to like lump him in with the same cast of characters, but you know, there was something about the environment that just makes people more susceptible to a different message than the norm. And whether that message is earnest or whether it's snake oil, is almost beside the point. Like the actual point is that people are more perceptive to it. And why are people more perceptive to it? You know, and I think that's the value in Callaghan's style of reporting. And we need more of it. It can't just be him, you know, going out and doing this stuff. And unfortunately, like, you know, CNN or MSNBC, they can't do it because, you know, their very existence, Andrew Callaghan's strength is that he disarms people. He's disarming as, you know, just an independent dude who doesn't come at them with accusatory questions, you know. But MSNBC, CNN, like the second people see those logos on the side of a van or the side of a camera, you know, the walls come up and there's nothing you could do or say. So, you know, we need more alt media doing the kinds of things that Andrew does so that we can all understand why people are more susceptible to the same kind of snake oil salesmen that have been around for years but have never been able to gain traction until recently. The power of spreading information with the internet makes it too easy to manipulate. That's a part of it too. Social media algorithms are a colossal part of it, you know. And I mean, that would be a very interesting documentary to do as well. The impact of social media algorithms on our social discourse, but that would also be a very difficult documentary to do too. You would need a much bigger newsroom than just a couple of dudes to track down all these people on Twitter and YouTube and shit. But maybe that'll be maybe that's a battle for another day for him.
And I'm really excited for Volume 12, which is coming out December 27th. It's coming up soon.
12
And
volumes.
13
She
is
said
currently
she said
scheduled
600
for March of
pages.
2023.
This
Jeez,
dude.
How many fucking volumes are there gonna be?
That's a great question. I wonder if Volume 14 will just collect Volumes 40 and 41 with Mira's final Berserk, or if they're gonna wait to add the new stuff. Because each one of these volumes has 3 volumes inside it.
Wait, what do you mean Mira's final volume of Berserk?
Volume 41 is the last Berserk by Kentaro Miura, who sadly passed away in 2021.
Wait a minute. You're trying to sell me on an unfinished story after you've been complaining about George R.R. Martin not working on Winds of Winter fast enough for you? Is that right? Is that what you're doing?
This is what I'm worried about. Kentaro Miura died suddenly of a heart malfunction at 54. George R.R. Martin is 74.
Oh my god, that's rude. Anyways, I thought you were little Miss Leave George alone.
Look, creative work takes as long as it takes, and I get that. But it's not like he's been focusing on Winds of Winter.
It's
George
never
keeps
coming
going on
out.
all these television
It's
side
never
quests,
coming
and
out.
it's like, stop with the side quests, bro, and finish the main story. Writing a novel is hard, and you have to spend a lot of time alone in a room in front of a computer. It's not fun. And as a human, I get that George is getting fat paid. And as a human,
George R.R. Martin says if The Winds of Winter isn't out by July 29th, 2020, fans can imprison him. Man, I mean, don't say that, dude. Someone's going to take that seriously. Jeez. I wonder if that's legally binding.
I get that George is getting fat paid to do a lot less work on these shows. He gets to hang out with people, meet actresses and actors, travel around the world, go to cool parties, go to award shows. He's made it. And that's fantastic. That's wonderful. But as an artist, I would feel bad if I left millions of people around the world hanging because I didn't finish my magnum opus before my time was up.
Oh, it's kind of like how people want you to finish your Cyclops video and do part 2. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, seriously,
We're not talking about me. We're talking
I've been waiting for that Cyclops Part 2 video for
People want you
fucking
to finish your
forever.
Cyclops-
That, like, okay, and this is as somebody who is a fan of Cyclops. I like Cyclops. And I loved that she actually made that video that was like, you know, this is Cyclops is the quintessential X-Men. It's like, yes. And I was a big fan of that, but she never did the part 2. So I was like, what the fuck? Where's part 2? We have to make sure people recognize that Cyclops isn't like the bootlicking teacher's pet that people seem to think he is. Like, quite the opposite, really. He's more of a psycho than Wolverine is, but she didn't get to that part of the equation, I don't think. I'll have to rewatch that video, but it was a great video. Like, again, I got into her from her Game of Thrones videos and her X-Men videos.
Video and do part 2. Oh, yeah, okay.
We're not talking about me. We're talking about George R.R. Martin. And if I were him and I were struggling, I would hire an underwriter to help me. And I would also make an outline and then prepare it to where if things went wrong, they could take over, like Sanderson did for Robert Jordan with the Wheel of Time series. This has been done before. There's a precedent.
So is Berserk getting an ending or what?
Yes, Berserk is getting an ending. It is being...
Berserk will return and be completed, supervised by Miura's best friend, Koji Mori will supervise the manga created by Studio Gaga. Berserk returns on June 24th, 2022. Okay, cool. See, I was unaware of that. I was unaware that it already came back. But that's great. That's cool. I don't know if this dude has written anything else, but
Continued by Koji Mori and Miura's assistant.
holy yes, I didn't even realize who she was. I was watching Comic Book Girl a while back, but dropped off. I didn't recognize her with the GOT hairdo. Yeah, she's awesome. I was a huge fan of her back when Game of Thrones was originally running because, you know, she just did like the absolute best Game of Thrones videos. And that's how I got into her. And then she started doing X-Men videos, and I was like, okay, like I am a colossal fan now. Like if you do great videos of Game of Thrones and X-Men, then I don't care what else you do. And everything else she does is great too. She did some great cosplay. She had a little mini show for a while where she talked about sci-fi creators. She talks about Dune. She's a big Dune fan, and that was cool when the Dune movie came out, you know, hearing her go through all the lore and stuff. She's awesome. I'm glad that you're a fan. It's always great to meet fans of creators that I'm fans of. You know, I try to watch her streams on Twitch when I can, but she streams full movies. Like she'll do full movie watch-alongs and like in the middle of the day on like a Saturday or something. It's like, well, I don't necessarily have the time right now to sit here and watch a movie on Twitch, you know, for however many hours. But you know, when I can, I try.
Assistants and apprentices at Studio Gaga.
Sounds like a cash grab to me.
Not even. Koji Mori and Kentaro Miura were friends growing up in high school, and he's a fellow manga artist. Not only that,
He is a manga artist.
Miura was inspired by Mori and put some of his friend's personality traits into the main character of Guts, which makes him the perfect man for this job.
Did not know that.
Mori has
Awesome.
stated that Miura once told him his vision for the series, including the ending, and he has vowed to tell it as faithfully as he can without expanding upon the plot in any way. I trust
True honor.
Studio Gaga
True honor.
and Koji Mori to get it done right.
Look, D.
Maybe he'll actually
Fast
adhere to a
volumes.
schedule.
I can't even read. And even if I did have the money and could read, I don't have the attention span.
Well, if you can read and you can't pay, you can check out the entire series on readberserk.com for free. But if you can't read or you're not interested in reading, you can watch the Berserk anime series.
Oh,
Okay. 3 different versions of this. There's the 1990s Berserk anime, which is awesome. It is awesome. It is just definitively awesome. And I think, personally, it is my preferred adaptation. It only tells the Golden Age arc. But, you know, I am a sucker for old school hand-drawn cell animation. Like, you don't really see that anymore. And Berserk looked great. It carries over. The soundtrack is awesome. Like, the soundtrack has been memed. Like, the soundtrack has been memed. Let me see. Like, Guts' theme is a TikTok meme for pain. You know. If you ever heard this track on a meme on TikTok or whatever, when someone is ironically expressing pain or sadness, you know. There's a comment on this where somebody says, I love so much that this is Guts' theme. They could have easily made his theme darker and sinister. We'll get to that a little bit later. But this captures the real Guts, his heart and his emotions, which I agree with. It is a very thoughtful musical interpretation of Guts' personality. So, anyways, that's from the 90s anime. There was also a more recent anime from 2016, I want to say. It's fully CGI. It looks kind of weird. It takes some getting used to. The first season, it's kind of rough to watch visually, but once you do get used to it, it's actually not so bad. The soundtrack for that one is more sinister, not quite so new agey. There are still some really good themes from it, some really good tracks. But it takes some getting used to. The 2016 anime takes place after I forget what they technically call it. I know the Golden Age goes up until when the five angels, come and unleash the demons on the earth. And then in this kind of a post-apocalypse scenario, that's where 2016 takes place. The anime, the 1990s anime, the very first episode starts off in that post-apocalypse. But then he flashes back to the Golden Age, which takes up the entire rest of that season. Or that series, really. It's only one season. So the 2016 one takes place entirely after all of that. So it almost serves as like this is picking up where the 90s anime left off. There's some great moments. I think it's only 2 seasons. The second season is definitely better than the first one. And it can be pretty wicked at times. It's pretty awesome. Like, it took some getting used to that animation style, which they use, and this is the third adaptation. The third adaptation, there are 3 movies on Netflix. I think they might still be on Netflix. The movies are also 3D animation, but it's a much, much higher quality than the show. It's nowhere near as jarring or hard to watch. These 3 movies also all cover the Golden Age. So they basically take the story that was told succinctly the story that was told within the 26 episodes of the 1990s anime, and they compress it from 26 episodes to 3 2-hour movies. The word botch job came to mind, but that's way too harsh. It's perfectly watchable. The story's still coherent, but because they're compressing so much into so little time, there is a lot of stuff that's left on the cutting room floor. A lot of character development, a lot of context. If you just want a quick abridged version of the Golden Age arc of Berserk, then those 3 movies are what I recommend. But if you have more time to dedicate to it, watch the 90s anime. And then after watching the 90s anime, watch the 2016 one. They're all good though. You won't be disappointed watching any of them. And I know this sounds like me recommending Berserk after saying numerous times that I can't recommend it, but I'm just saying, if you're going to go against my non-recommendation and seek this out, that is what I would recommend if I were going to recommend it, which I'm not. All right, that's enough of that.
Shit, there's an anime? That's what I'm talking about. Why would I fucking read if there's an anime?
The best version is the Berserk anime from 1997 with 25 episodes. It mainly covers the Golden Age arc, and it's coming to Netflix on December 1st. I'm so excited.
I don't think it did, though. I don't think it did, because I heard that before. I heard that, and then I looked it up, and I couldn't find it. It must be, I think maybe like in Europe or something. Let me see. Maybe I missed it. Yeah, I don't see it on here. It must only be like, oh, Monster's on here. Ooh, Monster is another good one. Monster is one I wholeheartedly recommend. But I don't see Berserk on here. So I don't know what this whole it's on Netflix thing is. Like, I'm gonna have to Google what the source of that was. Maybe it's like in Canada or something.
And read all of the terrible takes about it on the internet. What a treat. Then there is the 2012 Berserk movie series. It's also about the Golden Age arc. The animation's not very good. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah,
It
it's
goes
better
over
than the
same time as
show.
The 97 series. And most recently, there's the 2016 Berserk series, which is on Crunchyroll.
What the fuck is a Crunchyroll?
For the same
Yes,
Berserk series, which is on
that covers my sentiment perfectly. Covers new ground, but the animation is really fucking terrible.
Crunchyroll.
What the
How
fuck
unfortunate.
is a Crunchyroll?
Crunchyroll is an anime streaming service. Anyways, this series has everything. Hell dimensions, demonic baddies, religious zealot torturers, bloodthirsty elf children, mystic Middle Eastern assassins, troll attacks, satanic orgies, cursed suits of armor, a lot of titties, and one of the hottest bromance turned eternal enemy arcs of all time.
Oh, it's got troll attacks? Oh, hell yeah! Oh my god, they're raping all these village girls, and then troll babies are bursting out of these girls' bodies. Holy shit!
Yeah.
This comic is nuts! Oh my, Berserk rules! Danica, why didn't you tell me about this earlier?
Trigger warning. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and
That's exactly why I say that I can't recommend it to anyone. Like, that's exactly why I say I can't recommend it to anyone. It's brutal. It's brutal. But it is awesome. Crunchyroll, tempura shrimp and cucumber maki. Damn, you're making me wish I'd gone to that sushi place. I should have gone, shouldn't I? Oh, but I would have spent so much money. It's best that I didn't go. It's just after the holidays. I just spent a ton of money. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. All right, that was a cool video. I like that. I'm glad she came back onto YouTube. I'm glad she came back onto YouTube. So I'm here for Berserk, one of the best stories ever told and one of my favorite stories. Thank you for giving it some love, and thank Murai Kentaro for everything. Agreed. Berserk is a modern-day masterpiece and will go down as one of the greatest pieces of graphic storytelling of all time. Agreed. You got it. You asked for it. Come for the House of the Dragon. Stay for Berserk. Updates. Berserk is not available for Netflix for most. This was filmed prior to December 1st. Yeah. That's a bummer. What a tease. I really want to watch it. I gotta find some place to watch it now. 2, I'm wrong about the Berserk movies. They have some wonky scenes here and there, but the animation isn't that bad. Yes, that's what I was saying. That's what I said. Animation's not bad. Better than the 2016 one for certain. It's way better than 2016, which is actually bad. I hadn't watched the 2016 stuff prior to filming, watched it afterwards, and while I appreciate that they stay pretty true to the comic and it covers new ground, big yikes on the animation. Again, the first season of 2016 is rough. It's a tough viewing. But the second season is actually... It's still tough, but it's better. It's a lot better than the first season's animation. So, okay. So Berserk isn't on Netflix. Berserk is not on Netflix. This is the song that plays when I realize that Berserk is actually not on Netflix. Alright. I think it's time for me to get back into DanikaXIX Ogre. I gotta use the bathroom real quick, so I'm gonna go ahead and launch this bad boy. And then I'm gonna go take a little quick break. I will be back shortly.
the Valerian Isles, jewels of the Ibero Sea. Long a center of naval commerce, the people here have struggled throughout history for dominion over these shores. Finally, there rose a man to put an end to this conflict, Ogre. History would know him as the DanikaXIX King. Ogre took the disparate races of men calling the islands home and united them as one. He encouraged marriage between clans, forging bonds to strengthen his newborn kingdom. For fully half a century, the DanikaXIX King reigned.
Alright, let's see.
But the embers of discord smoldered.
I came for the Callaghan talk. I don't watch much anime, and I'm drawn more to nonfiction versus fiction. One of my favorite shows is Boardwalk Empire because it's fiction adjacent and more important. Well, that's cool. That's fine. I hope you enjoyed my take on Callaghan. I haven't watched Boardwalk Empire, but you know, I'm kind of running my ship aground on things to watch, so maybe I'll add it to my list. But I don't know if you were watching when I did my reaction to the NPR interview that Callaghan did, but I plan on editing it and uploading it to YouTube later. So if you missed it, you can either watch the VOD or just come back for the edited version. Excuse me. Sushi bowls are real easy to do at home. Rice, fish sticks out of the toaster oven, cucumber and spicy mayo. Serve with soy sauce and pickled ginger. Cheap and easy instead of sushi. Hey, what's up, Genetic Memory Farms? Welcome back. But you're right. You're right. You are correct. But I also just, for starters, that place down the street from me has a selection of fish that you cannot get anywhere that's not on the coast. I don't know how they get it because it's all really fresh tasting. It doesn't taste like something they just opened up out of a freezer. Like, it's really goddamn good, which is probably why it's super expensive too. So they have a lot of fish there that you wouldn't normally get anywhere. Plus, I also just like the atmosphere. It's a great atmosphere. Everybody's having a good time. Everyone's cheerful. You know, I feel like I'm out of my house doing something, touching grass, as the kids say. So, you know, it was an excuse. But you're right. And I actually should try that. I've never actually, as much as I like to cook at home and, like, experiment with things, just this past week, I actually made that Korean soldier stew, budae-jjigae, I think is what they call. Actually made that at home, and it turned out really, really well. I will be making that more in the future. I've never tried to make my own sushi. I should take a stab at that. I should take a stab at making my own sushi. Boardwalk Empire was good, but like a lot of good stuff, it never got the audience it needed. I enjoyed it. How many seasons did that one last? I think I get it mixed up with Deadwood. Was it around on the same time Deadwood was? Yo, Arachnid Soul, what's up? Sorry I missed your chats here on Twitch. Hey, I'm just dropping by for a few minutes before I go do some gaming. Please tell that guy to watch Deadwood on HBO. Well, I just said I kept getting it mixed up with Deadwood because I think they came out around the same time, or they were airing around the same time. Set in a more non-fiction world and one of the best shows I've ever seen. A solid 5 out of 5 show. Watch the show before the movie HBO made. I forgot they made a Deadwood movie. I'm about to touch some grass in a couple minutes, lol. The bull is looking at me right now. Well, don't let me stop you, but thank you for stopping by. I appreciate your presence whenever you grace me with it. The time period and the gangster genre. Are there any anime shows you could recommend along those lines? Also, I'm about to head out. Got to get up early for work. I did like your take on Andrew. 5-3 is my favorite. Anime, gangster anime. Yes, there is an anime that is, well, as far as animation is concerned, it's more realistic. Takes place in, I think, a somewhat fictionalized mob kind of setting. I always get the name just slightly off, but that anime. You go to desktop view. It's called 91 Days. I would recommend watching this